Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday, and welcome to another Starbase Weekly live stream. My name is Zach Golden, and I'm happy to be here with you all today. It's been about 2 weeks since the last time I was on the show, so always excited to be back on my weeks off, and happy to also have BJ and Lawrence here today helping me out. Welcome, y'all.
Glad to be here for another week. Had a great flyover, and we even have some bonus ground images to kind of help us with the explanations of some of the topics today, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, the ground images are really awesome. They're definitely going to help us out for a lot of the details that sometimes we're not able to see from the air. So really excited Mauricio was able to go out there and capture those images for us. And speaking of Mauricio, today is actually his birthday. So happy birthday to Mauricio. And even more glad you were willing to get out there and get these images and, with your birthday here. And I don't know. I think if it was me, I maybe would have take that week off or something like that. But I guess the show must go on. So really want to say thank you again for that. And today we're also going to have, I mentioned him earlier, but Lawrence will be handling questions and donations and probably also just, chiming in generally. He'll be taking over for Astro Joe for the day. So thank you for doing that, Lawrence.
Glad to be here and to help out, and also very thankful to the RGV team and all of our members. And I want to thank off Callistia Lee for giving 5 gifted memberships, and Jop Coopers for giving a gifted membership even before the stream started.
Yeah, the chat is pretty active before the stream. I wish I had more time to hop in there and just chat with people right before we're getting the show started. But it's really awesome to see all of the familiar names in there. Shout out to everybody who's been here for going on 2 years now. So yeah, it's really awesome being able to do this show every week. I also kind of do like getting 2 weeks off at a time because then there's a lot more to talk about. Sometimes for me, it's a little bit difficult to, come up with new topics every week. So it's nice having that little break in between. And on that note, if I do mention things that were covered in previous weeks, sorry for that, but I'm going to get myself caught up as well during this episode. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. And starting off with this really awesome image that Mauricio took basically from over the Gulf of Mexico. It really is always awesome getting a full view of, I guess, all of the facilities of Starbase. You can really see everything in this one image, and it really kind of puts things into perspective for you for, I guess, how large and also how small this is. It's just a little tiny patch in this basically wilderness area, essentially. So it's crazy just seeing the scale of everything. You have obviously the launch site down here at the bottom corner, right next to the beach. And then the build site, which looks crazy now that you have this massive star factory down there. And you can even see the area over here, which is where that new shopping center, I think this has been delayed, but yeah, this is planned to be a shopping center that's basically going to go right here. We have the storage yard that's on the side of the highway right there. And then Massey is in the back over here. So pretty much can see everything from one angle. This is actually a nice viewing area right here for the launches. I think we have both Raptor Roost, Rocket Ranch, and I forget what Maria's is.
Yeah, I forget too. And of course, the SpaceX has their few new additions there as well for viewing. Definitely a great vantage point.
Yeah, I mean, other than being right next to the river, I personally don't like being next to the water because of just all the massive amount of bugs you get over in that area. But other than that, this would be like a great spot to have a house at.
Yeah, I think the other thing that always strikes me with this particular angle is just how close to like the Mexican border with the Rio Grande there. That I mean,
Right?
like we're barely in the United States with as
Yeah,
close
you
as there.
can swim over there, literally. Yeah, this is a great view looking from there to the launch site, because you kind of get like this side of the tower right here. It's a little bit of a obstruction, but you can at least see the full stack when it's on there. So I personally like that view. People keep asking me if I'm gonna try and watch the next one in Mexico, which is just out of view here, but you can see the edge of the beach line where that viewing area in Mexico is. And it's actually a little bit closer than this viewing area over here. I would say maybe they're actually about the same distance, but all the camera views that I see from this side look really crazy. I think the only thing you can do better would be an SPI, but that is definitely closer from that side. So I think I'm trying to get somebody that I know to take me to the Mexican side, so I'm not like just on this adventure by myself that probably would not end well. But yeah, I guess also in the background here, might as well point out you have the port of sorry, we want to call this Port of Brownsville, but this is actually Port Isabel, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that where the LNG plant might be considered closer, more like Port Isabel, because Brownsville is farther up the channel.
Yeah, so this Port Isabel and Port of Brownsville back here. Yeah, you can actually see all the way back into Brownsville. Really a relatively small town, I would say. And even back here, you can almost even see the, I think, is this the Border Patrol checkpoint? I think that might be it.
Yeah, maybe. I forget how far over it is.
Yeah. And then you have the port access road, which I'm not finding either. I think that's way back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome view as always. And I'm actually trying out something new with my photo viewer today. They did a little update, and it should help me not have to scroll between screens as much. But this is the default image that it's going to go back to every time I'm going between folders. So just want to make y'all aware of that. You'll probably see this image like several more times today. But we'll see how it works out. And I'll, I guess, keep an eye on the chat to see how people kind of feel about it. I've been struggling with some issues ever since OBS stopped working properly, so trying to find new solutions. But yeah, hopefully this works out pretty well. And of course, we're going to start out at Massey's this week, where it's been a little bit quiet, although we have had test tank. What's the name of it? It's TT14?
16, yeah. Test tank 16 made its way out there last night.
Yeah, and that is the one that was previously out here. It did the first test inside of this new structure, and then they sent it back to the Star Factory. I actually don't know what they did while it was in there. I do think we had some decent views of it when it rolled by last night, but obviously it was dark, so I would say it was a little bit difficult to actually see any details on it, to know like what they did with it before they brought it back out here. Or it is possible that they were mostly just actually trying to work on the actual structure itself while it was gone, but at the same time, I don't know why you would need to send it all the way back there just for that. So they are preparing to do another round of testing out here for that test tank, and I think they have some updates to the actual test structure as well too. So it looks like you can see some pistons sitting up here on top of the cap.
Yeah, and they're hanging off the mount points that are underneath the catwalk there that we've commented going back months actually, and somehow it's gonna be involved in keeping that cap within the structure. I think we're gonna have to wait for the testing to see if. I think my personal opinion is that that design is allowing for the cap to both pull and push up on a test article. But we'll have to see if they actually use it this time around. Hopefully, maybe it's some test fits. It doesn't feel like the structure is complete enough yet for actual round of testing.
Yeah. So do you think these rods will go in between the two sets of pistons? Like they got more to put on here?
No, those pistons actually attached to. There's a bracket just inside the second ring of each leg of the structure that'll attach to.
Yeah. Hold on.
The rod. Yeah.
Let's go to some ground images because we do have a
Yeah.
good shot of that. So you're talking about these.
Yeah. So that's where the loose end of those pistons will attach into there for whatever testing purpose the cap that they're for. I mean, obviously we've seen how the cap works with the rods, because the rods are just a replacement of the ropes that we saw in previous testing.
Very interesting. So they have this on each of the. You can only really see it on this side.
Yep, all five legs have that same attachment point.
Do they have those at any other point on the structure?
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it yet. My speculation thought that maybe there would be another attachment point higher up because they've got that fourth segment for the top. But when the legs that have them, we saw some evidence of some attachments that were on there to help align where that bracket was going to go. And we haven't seen that on that fourth level legs. So it may be that that's the only location for that particular mounting, which would probably put the cap within that fourth level once it's finally placed on top. So we're waiting to really see the details on how the 6 lateral actuators that'll push sideways on the cap where they're going to actually mount that, because we haven't seen any evidence of it yet.
Right. So I guess you wouldn't necessarily be pulling up on the test article per se, but like more like pushing it from side to side, right?
Well, I think these 5 are more of an up and down. I don't think we're going to see a lot of lateral motion. Those rams are obviously going to have a little bit of an angle. And we'll have to wait till we see it installed to see how much, but I don't think it's going to be that angle is not going to be lateral enough, I don't think, to actually put side forces from those 5 particular actuators.
Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder why you would need to stretch something. I can get pulling down on it, but actually.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I totally agree. And but the fact that they've got the way that the hard mounts are, I can't see any reason what they're there for. So I think, like most of us, we're just gonna have to wait and see. There's a lot of mystery in that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just the difference in the actual structure itself, like what you're capable of doing with it. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what kind of tests are necessary for this next generation of vehicles that wasn't necessary for the previous, or if it's just a combination of things that they were able to do with different configurations of these structures that they're now doing all in one. It'd be nice to kind of get like an official word on that, but I guess we're gonna have to see what they end up testing inside of this, and that'll maybe answer some questions for us along the way.
Yeah, consolidating down to just having a very versatile test structure seems to be a large part of it, because of all the different features we've seen. It's not just that one test like a lot of the old can crusher. You really can only do one thing with it.
Yeah, I've noticed that this has some pipe work going up to the what is this, the third level?
Yeah.
So I think this is more for like connecting to the top of the tank, 'cause a lot of times they usually have like a vent or pressure relief valve on top of the tank.
Yeah, I think we determined from the previous round of testing that they did have the top of the tank plumbed into there, and then they had some additional plumbing somewhere down below as well. We didn't necessarily see it. It was more. It's probably into the bottom dome, but it was more evidenced by the fact that the first round of testing, we didn't see any evidence of the top hose being used for anything until it's like there's a 2-stage test. The first half of it, we didn't see any frost. We didn't see any evidence that anything was flowing through those two flex lines. So we'll have to see on there. There's some new pipes that terminate along some of the other levels. That particular picture doesn't show it, but in addition to the big pipe going up, there's some smaller ones that have tees off at at each horizontal crossbar, and so there's a lot of different capabilities in there. You can see those two smaller ones to the left of that back leg. But in the back, just above, well, yeah, those pipes, you can see there's a T there just above the second level at the handrail. And then there's another T at the third level. And so there's definitely some spots where they can tap into commodities in different locations.
Yeah, I was hoping there was some picture from the other angle, but I don't believe there is. Yeah, so I guess we're in for another round of testing from Test Tank 16, and I guess just for a reminder, that one has the ship common dome and the aft section.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, I always get them confused now because I haven't been following the test tanks as closely. I think there's only 2 of them though currently, right?
Yeah, for the Booster 14.1 and Test Tank 16 are the 2 test articles right now.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to be covering the booster test tank a little later in the show. Mauricio also has some great video for us of one of the tests they were doing yesterday, so we'll be able to show that later. What else do we have going on at Massey's? It's really kind of all, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen anything overly interesting. I mean, we've seen there's a few additional things brought in for the test structure. Some new catwalks are down by the entrance that are probably going to go on the backside. That trailer's got 2 of them. I think those are going to wrap around. Essentially, we've seen the little catwalk pieces on the 4 empty legs. That 5th leg that has the commodities coming up the top, I think those are going to attach the back of those to be able to get around.
Like around this side?
Yeah, so essentially that leg there in the back doesn't have a way to get across without walking over the top of the leg right now. Like the other 4 have that little walkway around the outside. So those 2 are going to go in the backside eventually, the way that the cutout lines up.
That does make sense.
But yeah, other than that, really, it's been really quiet out there. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, we see some testing in the next week or so and kind of give us something a little more to talk about. Because if they're going to start doing some testing, it doesn't look like there'll be any structural progress made in the next week.
Right. I'm surprised these new tanks haven't shown up yet. It looks like they have the pedestals for them out there.
Yeah, it's
think that's what
interesting.
those are.
I've been keeping an eye on the port arrivals sheet, and we haven't seen anything for new tanks arriving because we've got two sets of one full set ready at the launch site as well, with some initial work for a second new one as well. Getting ahead of ourselves there, but
So, yeah, so I mean, we should be able to see them relatively early before they actually arrive, right?
yeah, the tank, the newest tank at the launch site, the manifest didn't show up on the port arrivals until real close. There's one of the vessels came in, and we had like weeks of notice on the docket. So it all depends on how the paperwork comes into the port and
Right.
where it's coming from.
Sorry, I'm just seeing some funny comments in the chat here. Speaking of the chat, we have a ton of donations coming in. So I'm going to give Lawrence a chance to read off some of those if you're
Thanks,
ready.
Zach. Yeah, sorry about that. Unmute myself. Okay, so to start off with, we had a ton of donations, gifted memberships, starting with Toby Woby, who gifted 5, George M, who gifted 1, Lyric Bread gifted 1, our very own Rocket Prophet gifted 10, Jake Winlow gifted 10. We have a ton more of donations as well. We got Wilbo Baggins, who just with a $2 super chat said, "Bed can wait. RGV is live." And Kim Static, happy day, Mauricio. Keep flying with a $19.99 super chat. And then our Rocket Profit, again, $20 super chat. I will gladly hop on that train. Sharpie, $20 super chat. Choo choo. Callistia Lee, another $20 super chat. Donation to the birthday fund for Mauricio. Fat Dougie, $10 super chat. Happy birthday, Mauricio. Keep flying. Zero Fox, $5 super chat. Happy birthday, Mauricio. Thanks for all you and the team do for us. Jake Winlow coming back with a $20 super chat. Mauricio birthday trade. Rocket Profit again. Another $20 super chat.
This is a long list today, huh?
Yeah. Mauricio's birthday trade. Hop on and give thanks and birthday wishes. James Wilson, $10 super chat for Mauricio's birthday train. Methane Man, $50. Choo choo.
Wow. Crazy. Thank you all for your donations. I think that was the last of them on the list. Uh, uh, except for the gifted memberships from Methane, 10 gifted memberships.
That just came in, yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for your support. We greatly appreciate that, especially Mauricio for his birthday. I'm sure that's a very nice birthday gift from all of you. We'll make sure all of that goes to him as well too, because obviously it's a very special day for him. So appreciate all of your donations and your support for the channel. And I guess also, if you guys would like to hit that like button if you haven't already, we'd appreciate y'all. Got a great show ahead for you guys, and I probably won't mention the like button too much more, maybe like once towards the end of the show. So yeah, I try to keep that to a minimum. So appreciate all of you for helping us out in that regard. And I don't know if we had any questions come in from the chat. I think I do see a few.
Yeah, we have a couple. Six Strings Simpleton started one off. I think y'all already touched this. Could they possibly make it big enough, the test stand big enough for a full-size booster?
Certainly a possibility. We're going to touch on that a little bit more when we get to Sanchez.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a possibility. I would tend to think probably not, but the structure seems to be potential for it.
All right, Crayman came in saying any sign of more tanks incoming in the harbor for Massey's. I think you already answered that, though.
Yep.
Lifesavers with Purpose sent you a personal question.
Go ahead and read it. That's fine. I think it was about an email.
Yeah, he's just wondering if you seen it.
I'm not sure. I was working over the past 2 weeks, so I'm a little bit behind on that stuff. I have been getting like tons of messages on DMs on Twitter and email randomly lately. So I will try to get to that. Also, while in the middle of episodes, I tend to kind of disconnect from a lot of things. So you'll notice that I post a lot less on X and just in general. I try and keep it to a minimum when I'm pretty deep into working on an episode. But yeah, with that said, I will try to get to it and maybe expect it after this next episode comes out in about a week or so. Great. Any other questions from Massey's?
And one other one, Crayman again. Did you find out what the steel plates at the edge of Massey's are for?
No, we still haven't seen any movement out of these, referring to these ones right here. I was initially thinking that these could be for plates on the walls of the trench, but I don't think there's really enough for that. And obviously, they haven't started to do anything with it yet. But as far as I know, as far as we can tell, the only thing that really remains to be constructed here would be something related to that trench. And the additional tanks that we're expecting. So I would say the site is like nearing completion, so it's tough to imagine what else these could be used for. But um, we'll have to wait and see if they ever end up disappearing soon.
All right, so there's two more questions that, actually a couple of questions here. Do you think they will build a more permanent tower crane for Massey's?
Mm, I feel like the goal of Massey's is to not need cranes. Obviously, this one right here will probably need to stay um, in order to lift things in and out of this test structure. But in general, I would say at least for boosters and ships, they don't want to use cranes on those. I suppose a permanent tower crane could be ideal potentially right in this spot. But I guess that really depends on how often they plan on using this. I mean, I guess anytime you have any major change to like the ship, whether it's all the different versions, the tanker variant, the HLS crew variant, all of these different variants of the ship will probably require their own structural verification tests. But I would say, you're probably limited to like maybe 10 to 20 times this thing is going to be used in total. So for that reason, installing a tower crane here may not be makes sense economically when you can just have a mobile crane that once you're kind of done with this structure, you can just send this crane back to whoever you rented it from.
Sounds good. And any reason why the right side of the flame trench hasn't been concreted yet? They're talking about on the ground area on the side.
Right. Yeah, this is like the last remaining dirt here. Um, I don't know. I suppose it is possible that I don't know why they would do this, but allow the vegetation to come back in this area. Um, I mean, everything else is pretty much covered in concrete. So I don't know again why you would want to do that. Especially being near the flames, you are at risk of uh, vegetation catching on fire if it is that close. But yeah, I don't know. It does look like they got a nice little ramp on both sides of it. But as far as we can tell, it doesn't look like they're planning yet to cover this in concrete.
All right, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Rich, who sent in a $19.99 super chat. Happy birthday, Mauricio! Great to see you, Zach. And also James L. $10 super chat. Happy birthday, Mauricio!
Awesome. Appreciate the support from y'all. Uh, definitely, definitely love all of the love in the chat from Mauricio. You guys are pretty awesome. And I guess we'll go ahead and move over to the Sanchez site. I think before we do that, I did want to go and check out the Brownsville airport. I know that y'all probably went over this last week, but I thought there was some pretty interesting things in here. Um, it's interesting because a lot of this equipment has like left Starbase, and you kind of just thought it was gone for good. But it's funny to kind of see some of the things that are still remaining down here. So specifically in this back right corner, I think this is maybe a better. No, that's not what we want. That might actually be the best angle of that corner. Yeah. So back here, these are some like flame deflectors that were delivered a very long time ago, and we always wondered what they were going to be used for, and then they just disappeared. So looks like they're at this storage yard now. They still have some parts for the old version of the booster transport stands that are down here. So it's weird that some of these things that you would expect to just be scrapped are still hanging out down here. And then they also have, these are the, actually, I'm not sure if these are, hold on, let me. So aren't these from, okay, sorry, I thought these were from the QD arm, but I don't believe they are. So I'm trying to.
No, yeah, I don't think they're from the QD arm. We were looking at a lot of these the last couple of weeks, and I feel like some of those are parts of the old cryo stations at the launch site, but I haven't done enough research to confirm what may or may not have been part of those structures.
Oh yeah, but this does look almost like a QD like structure.
Yeah, because just a little bit up and to the left too, there's a what looks like it's a very similar structure to the booster quick disconnect frame as well. It's on the other side. All those reels it's off of frame right now, right there.
Right here.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that does look like a full booster QD.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the launch mount style ones that actually has the linkages to move back and forth. I wonder if this is a spare in case they destroyed the other one or something. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff down here, which I think will end up going potentially inside of the Star Factory. So lots of gantry cranes down here. And there's also some more cranes that are, if I have to guess, also going to the Star Factory.
Yeah, it's some
Which are
pedestal ones there.
pedestal cranes down here. But a lot of other equipment that I think will probably end up at the launch site. So I think these are some sleeves for 2 cryo pumps right here.
Yeah, that's what we've been speculating the last couple weeks while we've gotten photos over here.
Right. Yeah, and you got a lot of other equipment down here. I think these are some heat exchangers, like for a water deluge system, possibly. And I don't know, just a bunch of other random stuff down here.
Yeah, and even right there in the middle there, on the other side of the crates from the heat exchangers, there's some of the dampeners that were taken off the chopsticks and all sorts of middle pieces. It's just off the image to the bottom there in that last photo.
Can I see it in this one?
I don't think so.
No.
It might be under the bar there. But it was
How about
just
this
in
one?
it's almost just past that vaporizer on the top side of the
Of course it
driveway.
is.
But yeah, right there. They're right in the middle almost. There's 3 of them on pallets there right underneath your cursor.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. And then last week we talked about too that the burn plates just above it too that were in a stack over in Sanchez for a while that disappeared.
Yeah, so it's like all the stuff that they were storing at Sanchez is now down here. Got some spare flex hoses for I don't think these are actually for the booster QD, even though they look like they are. I think they're too long for that.
Yeah, and they even look too long for the ship cutie too. But
Yeah. Tons of spare items down here. It looks like they're, prepared for anything that can happen as far as like, having to replace large equipment items on site.
yeah, and even there too, since you weren't here, those two platforms right there are Chine work platforms right on the edge.
These?
Yep, those are
Oh,
two of the elevator platforms. I don't know if one of the three stands doesn't actually have them, or if why there's two more of them. But
I wonder if these are already installed in Mega Bay 1. Like if they
well,
have.
well, the other ones are. I mean, these are currently at the airport. So
So they do have these behind the other workstations.
yeah, I mean, at least I think we've identified at least 4 out of the 6 back corners of the booster stands have them. It could be that they have 2 for the very back corners, and maybe that they don't work with some of the other structures they put in there.
Yeah, we also have some linkages for the orbital launch mount. These look weird though. These are very different.
Yeah, the old ones that actually came off of the OLM are over
here.
in they're actually over by the building farther to the right, by the Gateway to Mars sign. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Gateway to Mars sign.
Yeah.
Installed it for a month and a half and then took it right back down. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just glance through here. I know some people like these random odds and ends, so it's fun to check in and see what they got down here. I mean, the inventory is bound to change all the time, so it's fun to be able to check that out. So I guess let's go ahead and move over to the Sanchez site.
And to go back on the question too, on the possible cryo tanks, I actually just did a search of the port, and there is an entry in there. They don't say cryo tanks, but there are empty tanks arriving on the 20th of August. So we may actually be seeing those tanks coming in the next few days.
How many?
Doesn't say. It's just 2 unload empty tanks beams. And the only thing I think of beams is that they're already sitting on their support beams like some of the other ones are. So
Right.
it's 680 metric tons, so maybe 3 tanks based off of the weights of the other tanks.
Jeez, those things are crazy heavy.
Yeah, they were just over, I think they're like 208 metric tons when they were just a tank, so times 3 plus some of the beams that are underneath them for easier transport.
Sounds about right. So
Quick
three
math,
large
but
tanks coming in, and that's basically what we're expecting at Massey's anyways, right? Is three additional tanks.
yeah, that's what Massey's would need.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll be on the lookout for that. That's like 3 days from now, right?
Yep. I'm gonna have to go track that vessel.
Yeah, nice investigation there. Cool. So moving over to the Massey's, or sorry, wow, Sanchez. Some odd developments over here. So for one, with the transport stands, it appears that they took off all of the hold down clamps off of the stand that was mostly completed. So those are down here, and it looks like they have a new set down here. It's weird because these ones like look crazy weathered, and they haven't even used this thing yet.
Yeah, it's interesting when we saw the new set show up last week, and then we were even more surprised this week when all of a sudden they were all removed.
Yeah, that's really weird. I mean, they look like they've been in a fire or something, you know? And it looks like so they took the scaffolding down from the third one, but that one still has not been painted, or I think it's missing a lot of like final things on this. But it looks like they're basically stopping work on that for now, which makes sense because I don't think they'll have a need for it for quite a while. And probably can prioritize some other actions in the meantime. Another thing that we have going on in this bottom corner over here, which we've been kind of speculating on a little bit, is this concrete that they've torn up down here. So kind of looks like it's meant to be a pedestal for something. So there's some beveled edges on the inside corner. And so at first we kind of thought this may be like a staging area for the static fire test stand. So especially if they end up building another one of these, keeping it somewhere at the Sanchez site would kind of make sense. But Nate did a little comparison for us. I think this is the right one. Yeah. Did a little photoshopping just to see what that would look like over here. And it actually looks like it's too big. The actual footing is too big for the static fire stand. So don't think that's what's going on here. But I'm interested to see or hear your opinions, BJ. Do you have any ideas of what this may be for? I guess I should also point out they have dug like a little trench leading up to this side right here. So don't know if this is supposed to be for some underground pipe work or something that will eventually go here. So that could be something that is routed like all the way over to.
Yeah, well, and I think most of us have decided. I think there was actually a number of conduits buried in there, and they may have just. There's actually some stub outs that have already been attached there and braced. So I think there's already some conduits that were buried, and they just dug up the ends of them and integrated them. So it's interesting. I was definitely on board with thoughts of a ship. Static fire stand storage location, but yeah, the size quickly determined that wasn't it. I mean, the wild speculation, I think, and I tend to agree maybe with it, is that potentially it's for the launch ring for the second one, assuming it's something that's not like built in place, integrated type deal. I think I could go either way. We'll have to start seeing what kind of components start getting built here, but the size is too big for anything we know of, and the only thing bigger I can think of would be something OLM related.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the interesting thing about it is that it looks like there's something for 4 legs here, and that wouldn't necessarily make sense for the actual a comparable launch mount to what is on the Pad A. So if it's just a ring, this doesn't really make sense necessarily. I would actually maybe expect them to cut out this entire square right here and then put some larger footings in the ground to actually support it. But yeah, this clearly looks like it's going to be for 4 legs of something here. And I don't know. I have suggested a possibility. I don't necessarily think this is what's going to happen, but I think it's good to mention it as a possibility. So I kind of view the Sanchez static fire stand as basically a test version of what they're doing at the launch site, possibly. So, the entire construction process of that, the actual functionality of the water deluge farm as well, I think could just be test versions of what they're going to be doing at the Pad B orbital site. So with that said, I guess my reasoning behind maybe wanting a mobile launch mount is not necessarily for transporting the booster while it's on there, but it's more for having the ability to have multiple launch mounts. So right now, we all know that they, in between launches, have to do a pretty good amount of repair work, and I think getting around that is pretty difficult because you're really just like running up against the limitations of material science with trying to create a structure that can withstand the the power the heat, the thermal energy coming out of the back of that booster, which as we know is just going to continue increasing as they increase the power of those Raptor engines. And also once you have a taller, heavier vehicle, you need even more thrust to get off the pad. So the amount of thermal energy transfer that's going into that pad is just going to increase from what it already is. So I think it's a bit unrealistic to expect to have a structure that doesn't require some sort of repair work on it. So, I think one of the things that I would do would be to have multiple launch mount structures. So we are already expecting a flame trench, and oddly enough, this outline right here that this is sitting on is very similar to the outline of the flame trench, actually. So I'm not saying that has any relation, but it kind of helps you see the point that I'm getting at here. If you could just roll the mobile stand over the trench, very similar to what you're already doing at Massey's, then you can have 2, maybe 3 or more of these launch mounts. And whenever you need to actually repair one of them, you just bring it to the Sanchez site and do all your repair work here, and then send another one out to the launch site. So I think something like that would make a lot of sense to me, and it would definitely explain the fact that we haven't seen anything for that launch mount yet, because it's going to be a complete unique structure that they need to assemble out here. And we should be expecting to see something for that soon, and this is the first sign of anything else happening here. So, but we do know, I think the sign at the front of the entrance labeled this as the tower and launch pad construction area. Something
That's
like that.
correct.
Yeah.
Real quick, Crane Man just had a question that relates to this. Is it possible the width of those 4 squares, rectangles, whatever you want to call them, for the footings are the same width as the flame trench area?
Um, it's going to be difficult to compare that. Let's see if I can find some. Okay, well, we know this is what a tower section width is right here, so I guess let's just go and so it's a little bit wider than the footing of the tower section. So we'll just go cheat ahead really quick.
But yeah, while you're doing that, I think I tend to kind of agree with your thoughts on that it would make a lot of sense with the refurbishment that we've been seeing with the first ring to have multiple rings that can be interchanged, essentially, to allow that maintenance to be done in parallel to testing campaigns and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the other good thing about it is, if you ever have to do any refurbishment to the actual flame trench or the flame bucket or whatever is going to be down here, then you can just move that launch mount out of the way, and it gives you the ability to almost completely swap out the flame bucket if you needed to. But yeah, I would say with what we're seeing right here with the width of the actual tower section, it what we're seeing out there would almost be the width of this right here. So that's interesting.
That is interesting, especially with the way they painted the lines on the ground in that rectangle.
Yeah, and again, to be fair, and sorry, I'm still getting used to how I got to go back and forth between these images. To be fair, those lines were there like very long ago. They painted all these lines out here, so it really, I guess we can't necessarily expect that to mean anything, but it is just a good indicator, I guess, of the actual size of this. But yeah, very, very interesting. And with it being something, if it was a mobile launch mount, I think it would be significantly less sophisticated than what we're already seeing with the Pad A launch mount. So all of the plumbing that's on the inside of it could theoretically go away. I think that one of the things that we don't know is if they're still going to start the engines for the outer 20 on the booster the same way that they do currently, which if they stop that changes things dramatically. As cool as it is having 20 individual QDs on the actual launch mount, getting rid of that drastically simplifies the actual structure. And matter of fact, I'm just going to pull one of my favorite images up. I wonder if I can remember the date of it. This was a really great ground image that Mauricio took a few years ago. I don't know if I remember the date, but it was a picture looking up into the bottom of the launch mount, so you could actually see the the QDs. Maybe Jake might send that to me. I know Jake has like quick access to that image. I thought it was like January of uh, 2021 or 2022, but yeah. Anyways, so yeah, if you remove those QDs that you're using to start up the engines, then your actual launch structure could be way simpler, because that's pretty much what all of that plumbing in there is for, is to start those outer 20 engines. So I guess you could reduce a lot of complexity if you're just using the actual booster QD. So I mean, it could be just as simple as increasing the size of the um, gas injection inlets on the booster QD, and then you can just, I mean, you would probably need a little bit more plumbing inside of the actual booster itself in order to accommodate um, doing it through the QD instead of through the individual Raptor QDs. But it would be a lot simpler, and you could build a large protected QD um, behind the stand, and whatever shielding you're using for that could be way larger than what they currently have. Um, so I think that may be an ideal situation, is just to be able to roll this up to that QD, and just set it on the ground. And you're helping out a lot as far as complexity goes, and your rapid turnaround time, because we do know that they are going to increase the amount of launches that are allowed out of Starbase. So this is a consideration that they're going to have to start addressing here before they even construct the comparable facility at KSC. I'm going to be really sad if it does get simplified in that way, but like overall, it makes way more sense, and I think it helps them towards their long-term goals of rapid reusability. So, I mean, if you can even just use this 3 times in a row before you have to swap it out, that's better than what they currently have right now. And I don't know. I think we could potentially see something like that. I'm interested to maybe see some thoughts in the chat, but I'm not going to read through all of that because I've been talking for quite a while, so I'd have to scroll up pretty high in this chat. But I guess BJ and Lawrence, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it's right on line. The complexity of the current ring just is not going to be a good long-term solution. And Elon suggested to it about the 20-hole dunk clamps are too many, and the chances that one of them is going to stick and cause an issue. Trying to get the startup through the QD, the main QD, and get rid of all of the individuals. I mean, all that stuff would make the refurbishment time go way down. It's going to make things much more reliable, I think, in the end. And especially if you're going to have a mobile platform, I think you're going to have to almost. Otherwise, every one of those platforms is just going to be a big undertaking. And then, like you said, with the launch cadence here in Boca, wanting to try and go to 25 launches, double that in KSC. I mean, they're going to have to find ways to make that much more efficient and be able to work in the long term.
Yeah. And, one of the other things about this, when I first mentioned it as a possibility, a lot of people were wondering, like, what if that would make the chopsticks useless. And that's not the case, because this wouldn't necessarily, because it's so large, I don't think that you would necessarily want to transport boosters on it. And beyond that, something this wide is not going to fit through the door of the Mega Bay. So this is about as wide as you can get through the Mega Bay. And matter of fact, that's part of the reason why it's longer than it is wide, because they need it to, this is basically designed specifically to fit through that door. So something like this, if it had a larger stance like this, you're not going to be able to fit it through the Mega Bay, and you don't necessarily need to. So basically, like I said, you just keep it at the launch site for 3, hopefully 4 launches or something like that. And you just need to drive over, I guess the same way you are now, just drive up to the tower with the booster and lift it on top of the stand. So yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. And the other thing that I mentioned was just what's going to happen with Sanchez after all of this tower work is completed. So now once all this stuff is gone, we really only have one section left. There's so much open space here. You imagine they're going to do something with it, whether that's additional storage for inventory, or if this is now the refurbishment yard for the mobile launch mounts. That would be pretty crazy.
Agreed. And so we did have two more questions kind of related to this area here. First one, lifesavers with purpose. Those 4 squares are going to be for the new rocket garden.
This right here.
Yeah.
So that is a possibility. We are expecting this to move closer to the road, and I think this is a little bit just slightly larger than what's needed for one of those pads for the ships. So yeah, I don't think that's what that is, and they would probably dig out a full square if that was the case, because they have to make a really thick pad with the embeds in the ground for that. So as it currently stands, that's not what it looks like. But yeah, we will probably eventually see potentially the rocket garden right up against this wall or something like that. Or maybe even just in this front row right here, or these 2 rows. You could probably put, like, I don't know, 8 ships and 4 boosters back here if you really wanted to.
All right. And the next one is from Appalachia Run. $5 super chat. Are you speculating about a launch mount reusable cover that's removed and refurbished off-site?
Yes. Yep. I think, I mean, that's just what I would do. And like I said, we haven't seen anything related to a standard, or I don't know if you can even call it a standard launch mount, but anything related to those first 2 launch mounts. I mean, they did start them. They started it before the tower began stacking. I think it was like around the same time that the first sections for that tower showed up. It took a very long time to construct that, and so I mean, if they were building something that complex, I would expect that they would have already started it, or else it's going to be, another 9 to 12 months until the actual launch pad is ready. So I don't know. I think we're going to see something a lot less complex.
Yeah, and given to kind of expand on that, the fact that the CC-8800 is only slated to be on site until January, I think anything that's heavy lifting, if there was going to be a very large ring that was one piece like the current one is, we would have to see it really, really soon to be able to, for that crane to be able to put it where it belongs before it's scheduled to leave.
Right.
All right. And one last question regarding this from George M. Why did they make the OLM so complex from start instead of making it as simple as this potentially?
I think that I don't know. I first of all, it was really cool. The existing design for the launch mount is really cool. I'll just bring up a render from Ryan Hansen Space. I'll just pull that up here because I have some pretty good ones. Let's see. So I'll open them up in this web browser right here. Oops. Cool. Yeah. So I think this was really a really cool idea. And it removes a lot of plumbing from the actual booster itself. So this basically this entire manifold that's in here. There's like 7 of them. I think I have a better view of this from the side. So all of this plumbing would essentially basically need to be inside of the booster. And so I think that was the goal, was to remove all of this stuff from inside of the booster, because it is a fairly complex, or it is a ton of pipe work, and they don't really have necessarily a ton of room for that. Which I actually also have a perfect image to show that. So this is the bottom of the dome, and this is from Chameleon Circuit actually. So this shows you kind of the space that they have for all of that pipe work. So they already have like 3 different piping manifolds down here, and then the actual methane. These are methane and LOX down pipes that go to the engines. So they're already kind of limited on space. And I even have I think I have another good one that'll show this as well too. This is a cool one. So yeah, this is that inside of that aft end cavity is what they call it. So yeah, you don't have a ton of space in here. I guess you could fit a good amount of pipes in there, but I mean, this is a lot. So I think the goal was to remove the complexity from the booster and put it inside of the launch mount. And you know, I feel like they accomplished that goal, and it is really cool, but it is fairly complex if you can avoid it. So I think that by starting all of the engines through the booster QD, instead of through 20 individual QDs plus the booster QD, you're already doing it for the center 13 engines. You might as well do it for all 20, I think. So if they remove this, I mean, you know, most of the complexity of this is just gone. Like, you don't need the actual QDs, any of the pipe work. You really just there's a fire suppression system in here, but even that's not really needed anymore. And after that, you pretty much just have the hydraulics for the hold down clamps. So this ring could be significantly more or significantly less complex just by removing all of this stuff. So I don't know. I think you know, it sounds simple just saying, oh yeah, just do this, but I don't know. I feel like it was a great idea that they started off with, and you know, nothing is exempt from being a part of the rapid iteration process out here. So, you know, while it does mostly focus on the vehicle, that is also true for stage 0 and for the actual factory itself, and the manufacturing process as a whole. So, yeah, I do think we should see something completely different, and I don't know. Hopefully that's what they're going to end up doing. Cool. Any more questions on that topic before I move on?
Yeah, one more from James Sanford. What connections would a mobile mount need? Booster connections could be a separate QD, but there'd still need to be stuff for clamps, etc., I guess.
Wait, say that again?
So the question is, what connections would a mobile launch mount need? So booster
Um,
connections, QD,
yeah,
clamps.
I mean, really just the clamps. That would really be all you need, is just the clamps, pretty much.
Yeah, if they found a design that allowed the booster quick disconnect itself to like sit just adjacent to the mobile stand, where essentially it's just the stand's own infrastructure, it would be probably fairly minimal in terms of hold down clamps. Maybe if there's any type of water, any suppression of water and stuff, or water suppression systems in there, because there is a little of that that's hand connected at Massey's for this stand. But it would be fairly minimal.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think the next question will uh, save for when we get to the production site. Just want to give a quick shout out to our very own Stephanie B, who did do a super chat, $20 super chat for Australian $20 super chat for happy birthday, Mauricio, and great to have Zach back for the technical details.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate all of the support, and also glad to be back. It's like I said, nice getting those breaks, but also I always look forward to being here when I'm on my 2 week breaks. So yeah,
And another $5 euro super chat from Booster 1058. Happy birthday, Mauricio. Have a great one. And then 55 Shipping Guy came in with 5 gifted memberships.
awesome. Thank you all for those gifted memberships. And for those of you, since there are so many of these gifted memberships that have gone out today, I want to remind all of you that you should have access to all of these flyover images, both the flyover and ground images. So if y'all want to go through these yourself, you'll be able to do that. I believe the link is underneath. If you're on YouTube, it's underneath the membership tab. If you go to the channel page, so you should be able to access the full gallery there. So yeah, definitely check those out. And if you think it's worth being able to do that every week, then you can become a permanent member as well too. So shout out to all of our members. There's always just a massive amount of green in the chat. I love seeing that. There's actually very few grays. Cool. So yeah, moving on. I think most of you probably know by now that they have stacked the 8th tower section as of this morning. And I don't know, I guess I could show that really quick. Maybe if somebody would actually hold on. I had most of this stuff prepared today, but this I don't. But I do know that my trusty pal Jeff has a great time lapse here. Oh, there's some music in the background. Cool.
Yeah, the sunrise this morning with the lift was just gorgeous.
Yeah, this just looks crazy. Now, I mean, I think a lot of people rightly asked leading up to all of this, like with whether or not this tower would be done before the next launch. And, I didn't think it would be quite this fast. Obviously, it's not going to be fully operational yet for a while, but we'll get to that when we get to the launch site, because there's a lot to cover on that regard. But yeah, it's pretty intense how fast they've actually gone through this stacking process. And I'm going to turn that music off, even though it probably makes me sound pretty epic. Yeah, it's just crazy that they've actually gotten it nearly completed this quickly. So as of right now, all they really have left is this last section. I mean, you still have a good amount to do after that, because they're gonna I think they're kind of limited to what they can pre-install in this section in order to be able to lift it with that crane. So they do have the 2 shivs, 2 of the 4 shivs down here.
I think those are actually for in the tower somewhere else, because all the shivs are actually in there already.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay, so they're back here.
Unless they removed the 2 in the front from last week, because they were there, but I think I still see them in there.
Is this visible from the ground? That's the question.
I believe so. I don't remember if he grabbed any pictures of this module from the ground though.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, it's the fence is just barely too high, so you can't really. I guess you can kind of see. Is this the block in the front?
No, that's probably actually the top one, because the crown block hangs under the mid beam, so it would be below this picture.
Okay, so I guess maybe we can't really see it from this angle, but there is a nice little side angle here.
Yeah, there
Oh,
you
that
go.
was convenient. Why didn't I just start with that? Um, yeah, so you can see that they do have it, I guess, fully outfitted, but they do have other components that still need to be lifted into the tower once this is completed. Um, Obviously, they do not have the drawworks yet, um, so that's going to limit them on being able to install the chopsticks. And one thing that we'll also probably see will be the red. I forget what it's called. Um, Basically, an
Yeah,
assembly frame for them to sit this on top of. They actually raise this up and then install the chopsticks um, in place on the ground before they lift the entire assembly at once. So we'll probably see that show up in the coming weeks. But that drawworks is probably going to be the limiting factor on actually getting this installed because I believe, um, well, I
It
think did it
probably
remain supported?
I would say probably not, because even right now the none of the Drawworks cables been run at even at 39A with the chopsticks in place, so they could
Really?
get the I mean, we don't have really good views around the front side, but is to the best of my knowledge, they haven't reeved any of the lifting systems for the chopsticks over there yet. Somebody
I
may
would love
prove me
to get
wrong.
some updated images of the 39A complex because, for one, I don't know if the drawworks is even visible through the side of it, but I wonder if they've removed it so they can use it down here. That's what I would do.
Yeah. It would make sense to they don't really need it yet over there, but
Yeah,
I don't think the Drawworks winch itself is a limiting factor on the installation of the carriage and sticks themselves.
right. Okay. So we may actually see that sooner rather than later. Another big thing that is still missing is there is no actual QD arm, and that is yet another thing that we'll discuss a little bit more once we get to um, the launch site because there's these ground images are going to help us out quite a bit with some of those topics. But before we move on, I guess, is there anything else that from the Sanchez site that you wanted to touch on?
I mean, it's worth noting just for everyone that the ship the rings building area up front has seen some new structure, another new structure, probably for the Star Factory.
Fair.
Um, Up by along the container wall. We've got the one ring that we kind of suspect is part of the aft assembly jig of some sort.
Oh,
There's the
hold
new
on.
one
Let me.
next to it. Question: We're kind of all kind of thinking maybe they're related to each other, but there are parts to build another of this new 10 spoked article. Um, like we've seen on most of these other articles, it's probably something for building in the factory, because everything that's been painted white that's built in this area has shown up in there eventually.
Yeah, this almost looks like a turntable will sit on top of it, but
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
but yeah, we've kind of some of those components have been sitting there for 3-4 weeks now. So the legs have been there for a while. The spoke pieces have been sitting around. The ring hadn't shown up until this past week, so we've all been just kind of waiting to see what they're going to build there.
Yeah, I am grateful that all this stuff is being constructed outside because even though it'll be hard to tell what it is. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get some interior views of the Star Factory. I guess on what it will be part 4 of the Everyday Astronauts Starbase tour. That will be cool to actually. Now that we've seen most of the stuff outside, we'll probably be able to identify most of it next time we have an interior view. But at the same time, I doubt Tim will ever do a full tour of the Star Factory because it's so massive that it could probably be its own 2-part episode just walking through that. Um, but fingers crossed we actually get to see some of this stuff inside of there. Okay, so moving on, there are also just a ton of other items out here that will eventually need to be installed at the launch site. So a bunch of cryo tubing that'll most likely go in some of the vaults on the ground. Um, I think there was some other things that I was going to mention over here. Not really. There was a new addition, I guess, to the chopsticks. So if I can find a good view of those. So the actual push pins, this is something Jake pointed out to me earlier. These push pins have been installed on the ends. So these are basically how they push the booster back on the landing rail. So if they need to readjust the position on the landing rail, I guess eventually they'll do that on the ship as well too. Whenever they, yeah, that's gonna be scary. Whenever they catch the ship on these, that'll probably be used for that as well too. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Other than
Yeah, and
that, I
the, and
don't
the
know.
interesting thing to note on that is that that's just a small little short pusher, as opposed to where we see the long pusher that rides the entire length of the rail. That one is probably only allows it just that small amount to get back to center.
Right. Yeah, because the other one has push rod on the back side as well too, right? This one does
Yeah, so
not.
yeah, it's the back one is identical to how the back one is on the full length sticks that are already on the first tower. And then we've seen in some of the close-ups the gear drive for that has already been installed. It's kind of actually right above where the vertical tube is. It's a 90-degree worm drive.
Oh, so there will be one. It's just not there yet.
No, it's actually there. It's sitting right in the middle, right there. You had it there for a second to the left of your cursor. Right about there is where the actual pusher. It's the exact same design as the first tower.
Yeah, tough to see from this angle, but I think I can see it right here. Possibly.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there. I know I've seen it in the aerials over the last couple of weeks and in other ground images. Yeah, you can see it right there. You can
yeah.
see the light gray is the top of the rail, and then you can see the pusher to the left there. It's near the end, right there.
Right here?
Yep, that's the pusher right there.
Okay. Fully extended, huh?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that's pretty cool.
I'm really waiting
All
to see
right.
what I'm really waiting to see when they start putting the mechanisms on there for the actual like the shift pin, assuming that it doesn't make a drastic change. Because that's the one thing we haven't seen on there is anything for the shift lifting pins.
Yeah, because I mean they should probably do away with those, right? Since they're gonna have to actually catch the ship.
It seems like at some point, and maybe one of these V2 ships at some point we'll start seeing where instead of having the sockets on the ships, there's some kind of retractable landing and lifting pin, and that this will never actually have that. Maybe even, and only the first tower. So like ship 33, assuming it flies, maybe that would be one of the V2s that flies on a V1 booster only from pad A.
Right. The other thing missing from these currently would be the stabilizer arms
Yep.
that hang below. I don't think we've seen anything for those show up.
No, and it doesn't seem like there's any prefabricated attachments for it either. So I think it's gonna be one of those things where maybe there's a design change, and we're just waiting to see what's gonna happen with it.
Yeah, you would think with the booster getting even longer that would be something that's super necessary.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to control the bottom very well without it, especially since they've gotten rid of some of those other alignment pieces. I mean, obviously we've still got the pins that help align it before the clamps actually engage, but that doesn't really help guide it into the right place.
Right. Before we move on, I did obviously want to mention our status with the ships out here. So ship 26 actually moved into Mega Bay 2 a few days ago and had all of its engines removed. So I think we were initially expecting that it would go into the high bay or something like that after so they could scrap it. But it appears that it lives on for now. Don't know if it's just waiting for space to clear up. Not necessarily space, but time to clear up in the high bay. The crane potentially could be busy right now doing other things. So they may need to wait for the right time to actually get it in there and scrap it. But for now, it still remains out here, just engineless. And we also have ship 30 out here as well too, which we have some great ground images of. So ship 30 this week actually received, or I guess it was last week, received its decals on here. So got some nice decals on S30, which they did not do on ship 29 for some reason. But it looks like the final touches are going on it pretty well. I thought I had another angle of this. It's cool seeing this from the front.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's they're really, really close with it. I mean, the last couple days, a lot of the work that we've seen on it is they've been doing a lot of like stuffing of seams with additional kale wool, probably on some of those the glued tiles where they just need to protect it a little bit more. And then those fun ones that were added a couple weeks ago.
Right. I wonder if Ship 29 had cameras on both sides?
Yeah, I don't remember either. I haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's looking like it's nearly ready to go though. Um, I think we're still waiting on a actual FAA license. So, um, they're obviously handling other things in the meantime. And I do think that some of the testing that they're doing currently probably um, is holding up that license. So I think some people may disagree with that, but I think the actual chopstick testing that they're doing right now may possibly hold up getting that actual license because some of that information that they're gathering from the chopsticks could be relevant to getting that approval, but there's no way to really know that for sure. But I do consider it like part of structural verification testing. Like they had to finish all their structural verification testing on the hot stage ring and the ship's aft section in order to actually be able to do that first launch with the first hot staging attempt with ship 25. Yeah, 25 and booster 10. Booster 9.
Yeah, but no, I think I'm right in line with that. That I think they're to get that license, they're going to want to know that those systems, even though there's not going to be people around at the site, they're going to want to know that they're at least high probability that there's a good chance of that being successful, not failing because of the systems that haven't been tested.
Right. All right, moving on. I guess we'll give a brief mention to the parking garage. It looks like they now have I don't think the bottom level was open last time I was on the show, but looks like they have at least 2 levels open, so still finishing up. Or I don't think this one right here is fully open, but it looks like they got 4 more levels to complete before they fully open this up and get rid of all of these cars on the side of the road here. Yeah, so making progress on that. I'm going to go ahead and move us over to the ring yard, unless, Lawrence, we have questions related to Sanchez.
I'm just double checking right now, and yeah, pretty much all the questions at this point are we can either cover at the production site or at the launch site.
Cool. All right. So speaking of the production site, starting at the high bay, right now we have ship 31 in here, and that one needs to have all of its tiles stripped. As of right now, they've only really started on the actual nose cone area, so we can see that decently in this shot right here. So I think they've already started to retile this, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you can see a couple of the new tiles just above where the existing tiles were there to the right ish.
I think I have some ground shots of this as well too.
But yeah, it seems like they're it doesn't seem like they're going full out on the new tile job for this one, but they certainly have started on a few of the key spots.
Yeah, they don't seem to be in as much of a rush for this one, but it kind of makes sense because it's probably a good idea to get in this flight with ship 30 before they fully strip this in case they decide they want to make any more changes. But some of the tiles are missing already. I don't know if these were ever actually installed to begin with. But yeah, these are still the original tiles that were on ship 31.
Yeah, it seems like they're working on mostly glued areas. I almost wonder if the fact that we didn't really see a whole lot of change in the outside edge, it was just that middle strip of the body that had gotten the new ablative layer. I almost wonder if down the road that they're not going to only do the middle and those edges may actually just stay. They could replace them as well. I don't know if there's actually going to be a tile. I mean, I know they said the tiles are better now, so there's a potential that just for the tiles themselves, they'll also need to be changed. But
So going back to that aerial, the high bay is pretty much empty other than this. Don't have anything in this back corner right now, and obviously nothing in the front corner either. So I do wonder if I always say this, approaching the end of the days for the high bay. Not any signs yet, but it's always a possibility that will be coming soon. So also down here in front of Mega Bay 1, we have some chines for, well, I guess we don't really know which booster it is, but it most likely I would have to guess is either 13 or 14.
Yeah, that's my guess. I would think that that being strapped down to the pallets is probably for one of the newer vehicles and not for 12. But I would think I think we saw chines on 13 when it's already rolled for, so it's cryo testing. So maybe for 14.
Are they fully stacked 14 yet? Oh, wait, sorry.
Yeah.
14 is fully stacked. It's 15
Yeah.
that they're stacking, right?
Correct. And 15, we're still waiting on the bottom 4-ring section for the methane tank yet. That has not yet been seen.
Okay, so one more ring section for 15 before they stack that.
Yep.
Cool. And this week we also saw some good progress with Ship 33, and I think we may hold on here. Let's see if I can do some exposure adjustments. I was playing around with this morning. I don't know if we'll be able to see in there a little bit better. Maybe I think there was another view that showed it. Possibly this one? No. I don't know if this might be the only one where you can kind of see in there. Yeah, well, so Ship 33, I think it had its common dome stacked last week, and then the section below that as well too. So it's just missing the final LOX tank ring section and then the aft section, I believe. I would need to check in with the ring.
Actually, I think it's only. Actually, I think it's only the. Yeah, I think
Only
that's
the aft
correct.
section
I think it's correct. I think the ring section, the 3-ring section, I think that has the caps to the aero covers, I think is the last one stacked. For some reason, I'm thinking that the next one was, but I don't think that we're down to just the aft section.
Right. Yeah, and beyond this, we do have some other cool views just looking into the back corner of the Mega Bay, so you can see the work platforms in here. This thing is pretty decked out, and they have some guide rails, I want to call them, that actually look like they fold down when you actually have a ship in here, so that it gives them access to the edge of the ship. But yeah, this is really cool, and it looks like they're missing the work platforms from this one, but I think those are currently at the Sanchez site. So tons of work going on in here. They actually looks like had to pour concrete on these levels, and I think they even epoxied them. They're looking kind of shiny. So really nice the way they got all of that set up in there. And again, I think this is one of those things that they're waiting on, just finishing up the interior here, because all of the work that they're doing with Ship 31 right now could technically be done in here, and it would probably be easier as well too, because on the back wall or on all of these platform levels, like you can actually bring scissor lifts in there, so you can drive around with scissor lifts on each level. So you can actually, I think, reduce the amount of scaffolding you need just by using those. So I feel like all of the work that they're doing right now could easily be done in this building once they have all of their construction finished. I think there's right now a crane sitting in that front right corner, still working on some stuff in there.
Yeah, that's Shadow's over in there.
Right. But they also use this for bringing in they have brought in some ring sections with this, right? But they're still using the double stack method where they use the actual the completed parts of the ship to lift the next ring section in line onto the turntable. So I have seen them use Shadow for lifting ring sections, but I think right now it's mostly just doing interior work on the Mega Bay.
Yeah, if I recall, it was only I think it was only the payload bay. The payload bay came in. It was the common dome or the forward dome was the only one that was brought in by crane. All the rest of them have been using the double stack technique.
Right. What is going on top of the Star Factory? This looks like a parking lot.
I don't know. Wonder if it's almost related to trying to manage the directionality of some of the rainwater or something. Kind of looks like we've seen on a couple other places where it seems like they've put some raised areas to allow the water to like force water to go. Like those almost look like they're forcing the water to stay away from the edge of the parapet wall.
Right. Yeah, that could make sense.
I don't know. It is very odd. It does look like a parking lot.
Are they redoing the panels up here?
It looks like just finalizing the seam between the first phase and that.
I hate the way that this part of the building is gray.
Yeah,
we're going to move on to the Star Factory in a bit. I'll keep us focused for now. But in front of the Star Factory, actually, there's some interesting stuff to point out. And I think I may actually have to go to the Star Factory images in order to see that, because I don't see an image that'll show it down here. So I guess I'll just go ahead and move us over there. Let's see. So yeah, down here in this front corner, it looks like they're building a sidewalk going around the entire outside of the building. So this sidewalk comes all the way over here and it does this little zigzag. I think there's an entrance right here. So they poured all this concrete for the sidewalk this week. I think we may see some actual like grass or other vegetation in here. So that'll look pretty cool once this is actually finished, because they won't need any parking out here. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the outside of that is actually still going to be concrete. We've actually seen rebar laid into that little triangle shape on the outside. I think I agree on the inside. We'll probably see landscaping. There also is no door there. Why that goes over to the wall there, I don't know, but it's a solid wall all the way. We confirmed that yesterday in ground images.
That is really weird.
Yeah, it's an interesting shape that they've chosen. And maybe the shape of the concrete's more about the shape of the landscaping, and they wanted to have for pressure relief cuts or something. This made sense, and then fill in the middle.
Yeah, that's super odd.
Plus, I think it'll also deter any of the guys on the scooters from just going straight up the sidewalk.
A little, I don't know what you call this, a chicane?
Yeah.
I'm ready for Formula One to come back. Cool. So yeah, and other than that, it looks like the only little like part that they're still working on in front of this Star Factory is right over here. So they do. I think they've already finished all of the underground drainage work over here, but it still looks like they got some sections of those drainage pipes out here. So maybe they're not fully done. But yeah, I mean, they're almost finished with the front of this building, which is really nice. They're making tons of progress with this. And at this point, we're mostly focused on what's going on down here, which is a bit of a mystery, I would say. So I'm actually going to look at this from another angle, which kind of helps us understand what's happening here. And what are your guys' thoughts on this right now? So I guess I'll just explain that one of the weird things about this is we're kind of expecting this to just be an extension of the actual factory, which it is, but the framework here is very interesting. So it has some cross bracing along the bottom, and I think right here as well too. So there's two levels to this, kind of similar to what you would expect with like a walkway. But the weird thing about this is the way that the other cross braces are through here. So across like this. So if you have a walkway, this isn't really conducive for a walkway having these cross braces here. So do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think those spaces are big enough for it. I mean, that past view that you had looking in the back, it's much more open. This view really kind of makes it look like it's more cluttered than it is. I think the biggest thing is that when we didn't get to see it happen because they installed it all after the Star Factory was closed in, but in essentially that outer lane of the entire length of the factory, just right where the glass is, that second floor mezzanine level exists all the way down to the nose cone hallway by the bays. Now, granted, it's only like half of that bay's width. You can kind of see a couple weeks ago, you could see the framework of it sticking in that opening, and I think you can kind of make it out currently. The fact that it's only so that second floor mezzanine isn't as odd to me because of the rest of the building. The fourth floor, definitely why they have an extra level at the fourth floor, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of a mixed where it's not quite as open, or it's not every level like the factory or the office is, but there's extra room up there, and it's odd. I think everything inside of that's going to be full height, so it's only this outer four sections. It's going to be kind of weird.
Right. And so there's two levels on this, right? So one down here and then one right here, which meets with the fourth level up here.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So basically, you're potentially ending up with a walkway in between these two structures. And right now, it's still we do know that this building should contact the other one, and they should end up being one structure. And so we're actually can still see the bases for the remaining columns that are going to go here, and these look like the kind of truss type columns that we saw on the other side of the factory. So I think they only use them down in this side of the building, right?
Yeah, I think I think we're gonna see more like the first half of that wing, where I think it's gonna be two columns, and maybe one column is for structure and one is for the bridge crane support.
Right.
Um, so we'll have to see where exactly that goes. But the beams that we're starting to see, the bigger roof beams, or at least what I'm assuming are roof beams, should finish that whole next bay.
Oh, so these are all for this section right here?
I
Or
think
you're
that stuff
thinking
to
all
the
the
I
way
think
in here?
I think the ones to the left, the bottom left there, they're the ones that are in the plot of land that we just got. Those there's like six there's three really big beams. I think those are the roof beams that'll come across the tallest segment that's next
Right.
in that next area.
Yeah, and so that was one thing that was covered last week, is that SpaceX now has access to this plot of land, as you can tell now that they got some groundwork on it and actually able to lay out some of their construction material here. So that's going to be interesting. And we can still see the rest of the marks for all of the columns that are going to go here. So now we can kind of see that it's going to curve down like this. Oops. So it'll curve down and meet the building right here. So interesting shape overall for this end of the Star Factory, but I think it's pretty cool. I do have some thoughts. I guess I'm curious what you guys think about the holes through this building. So this right here kind of just looks like a what do you call it? A skylight.
Yep, that's all I think it is. I know we've thrown some speculation of other ideas. I think it's just a triangular skylight. We've seen some similar geometric openings in the other side of the building, so I think
Yeah, so it's
I
like
don't
a
think there's
huge
anything.
lobby down here.
Yeah, that whole atrium. There's a ground shot that kind of shows us how that atrium looks right now, and it's just nice and open. I don't think there's anything overly special about that one. I'm confused by the rectangle, other than being like an open patio space. Maybe
It
the
looks
side.
like a bar,
Yeah,
like a two-level bar where you have like an open area, and then with the way that this is covered on top, um, it almost looks like they're going to put epoxy on top of this, but I can't really tell. But it looks like you'd have like a view looking down into the lower level of the bar almost. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at some ground images from this, because we do have some pretty cool angles of that. Um, so this is, matter of fact, I do like showing the full Star Factory, because if you haven't seen it from the ground, it looks pretty amazing. And it's been so long since I've been here that it's hard for me to even imagine this structure here right now because the last time I was here, I think the mid bay was still standing. So, yeah, this is just crazy. I love the way it curves around like that. And you can see that curve is continued with the new frame that's going on, the new framework down there. So, here's a nice little ground view of that. You can see it's not
Yeah.
really connected to the other structure yet. I don't know if that's still something that's remaining. It is down here, it looks like, but
Yeah, there'll probably just be some smaller beams that go in there. I'm curious to see how that exterior finish is going to go because when you look at the first, I think it's 4 bays, you can see all the exterior cross brace and cross beams match what the Star Factory has been, but at this fifth one, all the spacing on them matches up with how the structure is on the office side. So I'm curious where it's going to go full glass. I know some are hoping for it to take an angle up to kind of mirror what's on the other side. I have the suspicion that it's going to be glass full height to whatever, either at the very end or at that middle point where the horizontal beams change their spacing.
yeah, I think it. I mean, this almost does look like it's matched with the this side of the building right here, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So it does look almost like one row going across, but I don't know. It's tough to say.
But the spacing of all those beams above is very similar to what the glass on the other end is. The solid cladding all had the Z-girt and all that stuff. So I tend to think it's going to be glass all the way up to where the solid cladding is right now.
Yeah, that does make sense. What's weird right here is this wall going in, I guess, but that's you still have this kind of walkway that's outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this build when the factory when this if to call it anything else, the factory side meets up with it. I think we're going to see a solid exterior wall, and then the roof is going to be connected, and then there's going to be no interior walls. There's going to be weirdness here at the where it connects, but all 4 of those levels inside are just I think are going to be think about like some hotels that have like an open hallway to an atrium. I think that's what it's going to be an open hallway overlooking the factory.
Right. Wow.
And I actually didn't even quite notice until just now. I didn't see that picture that there's kind of a sloped angle on that one roof on the second floor up to the third.
In this image or
Yeah, that one. When you're zoomed in, you can see how you can see how that wall on the second level of the office itself. There's actually like a sloped roof where it goes up to meet the third floor,
um,
right where the guy's working in the scissor lift.
right here?
No, the scissor lift on the second level.
This one.
Yeah, so you can kind of see there that it's almost like instead of just going a wall up and straight over to that level, it's like they're putting a little angled roof around it.
Right.
I didn't notice that last night when we were kind of previewing things.
Looking for this. Yeah, so this is the other side of the. Sorry, I just smacked my mic right there. This is the other side of the office building, which is really cool. The way that this thing is shaped. So this is the front corner, and this is like the atrium right here, where you can see the. I'm guessing a large glass opening will be right here, or maybe it just be left open. Well, you probably wouldn't want that because get rain all up in there.
Yeah, I think it'll be glass. I think it'll be glass up to the fourth area, and then I think it'll go solid, like we're seeing the evidence past that.
Yeah, and you got all this external framework right here, so I don't think this will be glass on this edge. Solid wall, at least on this level right here. And then I do wonder what they're doing on the bottom, if there'll be large glass panels along the bottom as well too.
Yeah, over on the Highway 4 side, we've seen that there's framework for solid over on the factory side. So it'll be underneath this little overhang, I would think that it might be glass instead, but we can't really see it.
Yeah, but all of the framework on the inside is going pretty well. They have starting to do some of the actual walls now over the framework. and still got all their HVAC that they're installing as well too. No permanent lights in there yet. All this is just construction lighting. Um, yeah, this is a really cool building. I like the way that this curves around on the inside of it here too. Cool. Well, I guess this kind of wraps up the Star Factory. Um, I don't know if there's some more questions or if there was anything else you wanted to point out about this.
No, not really. I think we've covered it and we've gone pretty in depth on it, and a lot of fun stuff going on. It's probably one of the main areas that has a lot of visual changes to kind of look at.
For sure.
All
Yeah.
right, so I got a ton of questions for this site, and some referring back to Ship 30. So let's go back here. One question that was brought up by Stephanie, me, and some other people in chat. What are the yellow boxes under the flaps on S30?
That is a great question.
Yeah, and that's a great photo too, because I had seen some other photos that wasn't as didn't show it as well as this. Seeing it, I don't think tells us what it is. I mean,
Yeah, there's another one over here as well too.
yeah,
No idea.
feels like.
Jenkins,
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say in chat, Jake Max Q suggested that they could be thermal cameras.
Yeah, that could make sense. I'm surprised they don't have one on this edge, if that was the case.
Yeah, being in the middle, it almost makes me think that like that's like a housing for some kind of like data recorder or something that's associated with something that's on the other end of the cable, maybe for the same purposes. Just kind of monitoring temperatures.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost on that one. No idea. This one is
All
a little
right.
bit lower, and I think it's turned the other direction, looking down. While the other one, so I guess on this side it's looking down towards the rear of the flap, and on this side it's looking up towards the front.
And isn't the one facing down, wasn't that the side flap that basically
Burned through.
melted off?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's pointed down in this direction, so that could be some sort of thermal camera. That would be a good guess, I would say.
All right. And just try and speed things up here. From A8 IHJI, now that the Raptor 3 is simplified, could you move the plumbing inside the skirt?
Um, well, I guess it's a little difficult to determine like what that's gonna look like. So, oops, hold on here. Trying to exit out of this. Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously going to be plumbing in here no matter what. But one of the things that we didn't see with that image of the Raptor engine was like anything above the actual mounting point. So there was a lot of, I mean, it's tough to say what it looks like up there. I might have it open right now, actually. Let's see. Yep. So yeah, we can't really see anything above this point right here. So it's tough to say what kind of plumbing is going to be in the booster. And in all reality, we may never see it. I guess we would see more than we would with the current generation of boosters, since there won't be any engine shielding. So I guess that's a plus, that we'll actually be able to see how this interfaces with the booster potentially, unless there's some sort of cap, I guess, at least over the mounting point. But yeah, tough to answer that one right now.
All right, and Tim Jones had a similar question along the top line, along those lines. Could one or more booster Raptors be united to a single BQD to reduce the QD points, ring manifold, or such?
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely put multiple QDs along the skirt of the booster, so you have more than just you remove the individual ones for the Raptors, but then you also add another one that's like um, not part of the main booster QD. So I would say that's possible, and like divide up the manifolds in half along either side of the booster. Yeah, that is a possibility. Tough to really speculate on that. I guess there's a lot of variables there. Once we see the new booster aft section, or once we see the launch mount, it'll probably give us a better idea of how they're going to change that kind of stuff.
All right, that's good. And um, question from John T. Where did they take the CH4 header tank from the production site?
That's a good question. It most likely went to McGregor. I don't know if I have an image of that. I bet you Vic's probably posted one, so let me just see if I could find that really quick. Vic's always pretty reliable with these types of things, so let's see. I feel like
Yeah,
it happened later in the week.
yeah, I don't think she did.
Oh wow, what a slacker!
I mean,
Every time I go,
it was seen near Harlington by one of the somebody there, and it was confusing as the direction that it was traveling. So
uh,
it's some confusingness there.
yeah, I was hoping we had a good shot of it. We do not, but what I do have, there is. Oh wait, is that it right there?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's chilling right here on this truck. So this is a ship header tank assembly. So this is, I don't know if it looks down at it a little bit better. There we go. Yeah, so sitting on a truck, and believe they took it to McGregor. So most likely, probably going to do some like structural verification test on it. That's McGregor's seems to be where they do that for header tanks. Um, I don't know why. I think it may have to do with just having open space for it, and a specialized tank farm just for small objects like this. But speaking of that, there was also another little header tank that was seen this week. Maybe. Okay, cool. So yeah, we this is from Lab Hydra as well too. So this is a little mini header tank, which appeared yesterday. Today is the 16th or 17th. Yeah, so this appeared yesterday, and we believe this was actually also tested at McGregor. It may not be the actual test article itself, but from some of the NASA spaceflight flyovers, we know that this a small header tank like this was tested at McGregor. So this is interesting. I think this may be the first, obviously the first of its kind, but we don't know necessarily what it's used for. So one of the interesting things that it doesn't have is a hole through the top of it, which is necessary for the downcomer of on the booster. So this basically looks like a tiny version of the tank on the booster. So I don't know. I had some thoughts about this, but I'm not really necessarily sure. It kind of almost looks like, not replacing the header tank, but in addition to the header tank, almost like if you wanted to store a third liquid in there, like let's say liquid nitrogen. Not really sure necessarily why you would need that, but one interesting thing I did think about is the internal cooling on the Raptor 3. So we do know that part of that cooling is methane because you're obviously have that through the engine nozzles, but we don't know what the rest of it is using. So it could be using LOX, but that's not. I think a lot of people try and shy away from using locks as a coolant. So it's possible that you may end up with a third liquid, whether that's nitrogen or, I mean, highly doubt they would go back to something like an actual hydraulic fluid or something like that. But yeah, you could potentially need a third storage for whatever that coolant is for that Raptor engine. So we don't know what that is. We don't know how that coolant system works. So the only thing I could think of for this is potentially being the bottom of the new header tank. So basically what this is, I guess I was talking to Jax about this before the show. So this weld mark right here, and then you have internal stringers on this. So basically this is probably another dome, maybe the exact same as this dome that comes down below here. So it's basically a skirt around the lower dome. So theoretically you could put the other header tank on top of this, and then it raises all of the plumbing for the methane pipes that are coming out of the bottom of the header tank. It raises all of that up a little bit, but I don't know. That's just my speculation. I can't really think. To me, it doesn't go on top of the header tank because it needs the large hole in the middle for the transfer tube to go through, and I don't see that on there. So I don't know. Do y'all have any other thoughts?
I mean, my initial thought was more in line with the assumption that the additional tanks that we saw on Booster 15's aft, if those tanks were more about added volume, that maybe that this was just a slightly larger version of the header tank, and they just needed to re-verify a new dome from what the old one is. I think it's a much more elementary design change. I think what you've said is probably maybe even more in line with what could actually be needed, but that was my thought.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, I thought about like extending the capacity of um, the landing tank, which they're probably going to have to do once they increase the size of the booster. Um, you probably need additional capacity in that landing tank, but it's weird that this wouldn't be like a full scale tank, and it's just a header.
Yeah.
I do also wonder what the diameter of this looks like compared to the header tanks that are currently there. Um, I think we were saying this was like a 8 foot.
8.5.
Regular
The trailer's
trailer?
8.5. The trailer's 8.5, 102 inches. So
And I think I'd have to do some conversions here, but I think that header tank is 3 meters wide. Nick told me this recently, but I don't remember. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to pull that out.
yeah, 3 meter would be just short of 10 feet. So it's in the ballpark of the right size.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of those things that it's going to be tough to actually know, especially if it's like on the bottom of the tank. We may never actually see it again. But if it goes on top, then we may actually be able to tell. But I suppose if this is installed at the bottom of the booster tank, that it would lift up the rest of the header tank. So that may make it kind of stick up a little bit more. So we'll actually be able to tell that there's something underneath it. But yeah, this is very interesting. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and move us back to... Oh, wait. Sorry. Did we have another question? That we kind of went off track because that was about the other header tank that we were talking about initially. I guess, Lawrence, I will take that as a no. Cool. So with that, I guess we will... I guess we can just take a glance at the village really quick. And again, sorry, I keep going back to this image. I'm kind of trying out a new organization system here. And village. So yeah, this is not really much to mention here, but it does look like they're kind of clearing out land for the rec center that's supposed to go back here.
Yep, just another couple. I think this is the second week we've really seen any groundwork out there. So moving forward.
Yeah, good progress. They're taking forever on it though.
Yeah, it's a really expensive building. So
yeah, I guess so. Cool. So I don't think there was really anything else in the village that we necessarily need to mention. It's kind of boring these days.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had to step away a second.
Cool. Did we have any other questions that I didn't answer?
Uh, let's
Before I
see.
go to the website.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only ones were uh, about does the I know there was the one with the office building, Appalachia Run. Does the shape of the office remind anyone of the SpaceX logo? And that was a $5 super chat.
Not really. It doesn't really have like an X to it, X shape to it. Actually, let's take a look at that. Could you make an X out of this? Hold on.
Yeah, he's saying at least half of it.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Nah.
And Crane Man was like, could they be duplicating the angled glass facade on the new structure between factory and the office building?
Maybe, but I don't think so.
And Cumulus Granitas, could that triangular patch be a pullout where gate security could direct someone to park while they processed into the site?
Where?
I think he's referring to that striped area next to the guard shack in the driveway.
Oh. Um. Can you repeat the question?
Could the triangular patch be a pullout where gate security can direct someone to park while they are processed into the site?
I don't know about that. They usually don't let people pass this. I mean, they until they get clearance. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the visitor parking is all kind of right here.
All right. And there was another question about any idea from Ulrich Mueller. Any idea why there's some additional tiles at the right side compared to the left side of the nose cone? And I believe they're referring to ship 30.
Let me try and get a full view of this. I don't know if there are. I think that because this is not taken from the front, or directly from the front, it looks like there's more on this side. I think it's identical on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just an off angle and you can't quite see the symmetry.
Yeah.
All right. And Crayman's asking, could the angled office building have to do with the sound wave from the launch site?
Um, I doubt it. I mean, if we look at it from that really far view, um, I don't know. You're kind of putting a flat face towards that sound wave, so I don't think that would be ideal. If that's what your goal was, I think they got nice windows and they're not really worried about that. But if you get like a pad explosion, yeah, probably gonna lose some windows. But I think we're hopefully past those days of full stack pad explosion.
All right. And from Matthias Adamus, could there be a hotel near the offices or quarters for astronauts?
um, well, I don't think they're going to be doing crew launches from here necessarily, but they do have, and I'm trying to avoid going back to the other image, but they do have like housing for like contractors who aren't here permanently. So I think visitors are able to stay in some of these smaller um, trailers. I don't know if that
Okay.
really answers the question, but
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and Brian Illenberg, could that small header tank be an HLS Airlock Pathfinder.
I feel like it's a little too small for that. But I mean, we do know that there is a dome here, so I don't think that this would have anything to do with a airlock necessarily. Cool. And I guess I will go ahead and get us over to the launch site. We are a little bit past the planned time, but it will be worth the extra time, I think, because there's a good amount to discuss here. So I guess, well, actually, and sorry for going back and forth here. This is the bad thing about using this type of viewer, I guess. But I do like this side shot of the two towers together because it's probably the perfect angle to see it from. But yeah, this is from yesterday. So obviously, as of now, this section down here, the 8th module, has already been stacked onto the tower. So it's in most angles that you view this from, the first or pad B tower does look taller than the first one, which it's really only going to be like a few meters taller. But I guess just most angles that you see it from, it looks like it's taller, even though it's not. But yeah, this is pretty awesome that they've made this progress so quickly. And I think from this view, you can also see the shape that they're going with here for. I wouldn't necessarily call this the actual flame trench yet. This is just allowing them to set up like a wall so that they're preventing water flow underground water flow from here. And they may actually excavate it out because I believe all of the pilings are in this area as well too. And I might as well just actually go and look at that from a closer view.
Yeah, we're in the next few weeks probably. They've made really good progress with this second set of sheet piles. I think we're gonna start seeing some excavation work going on and start seeing piles within that rectangle that is kind of our confines for that excavation.
Yeah, hopefully I just boosted up the exposure a bit on this. Hopefully that isn't too bright. But yeah, so when we're looking at this, you can see it's parallel. So I think a lot of people have showed it coming out at an angle, but I don't think that'll be the case. So right now they have the full set of pilings, or not the sheet pilings on this side, which go all just past the actual base of the tower, and they haven't gone across yet like this. So I was kind of expecting them to box it in fully, so it's like kind of like a cofferdam essentially. And they have not done that yet. So they're going down in this direction now, and I believe we should probably expect them to go all the way to the end over here to kind of match where this one ends at. But yeah, you can also see all the pilings down here, at least the tops of them. So I believe that once they excavate all of those, they're basically trying to prevent water from flowing back in through here. I don't know. I mean, I'm still curious how deep the actual trench itself will go, or if it's going to be a above grade trench. So, I mean, do you guys have thoughts on that? I mean, it's a little bit confusing with the way the pilings are down here, but then you also have the deep soil mixing going on down here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably going to go down below. I think the jet grouting, since we can't see what it's doing down there, I'm kind of in the line that the speculation that they're probably actually only, as opposed to deep soil mixing the entire surface from surface down to a depth, I think they're building a shelf down below at subgrade with that, so that when they excavate, essentially you've got the sheet piles keeping the water out from the sides, and then you've got the jet grouting prevents the water from coming up from below.
Right.
So and then that gives them a bottom of the excavation eventually. They could be doing a full mix for all we know. Since this technique can do both, there's no way really for us to know, other than the fact that it doesn't seem like the top is all that mixed, especially kind of where the excavator is. They were working in that area last week and it's pretty dry. So it almost looks like that top level of soil hasn't really been
Are you talking about over here?
No, down to the
or
bottom there,
down this
kind of
side?
in the middle of that C. They were actually doing jet grouting kind of off the left hook instead of over that top hook. Um,
Okay.
We're kind of using this as a pit to collect the slurry that's being ejected out, probably when they bring the machine back up.
Yeah, and so they've done some potential excavating down here already, right?
We think that that's actually just a clean out pit, kind of just on the edge of the screen up by the grout plant. They've got a temporary one over there. It looks like they've just kind of mounded
Right
up a
here.
rectangle and then put some plastic in there that maybe when they start doing some concrete work, it looks like they're potentially getting pretty close to doing some more leg filling with the concrete. So I don't know that they need that big of a clean out for it, but it looks like concrete clean out to me.
I guess you maybe would, because you're gonna have just a massive convoy
Electrics.
of trucks coming in and out. Well, I guess they do go. I don't know if they're necessarily that quick with it, but they do. And matter of fact, we may as well touch on this now too, since we have some good ground images that show this, because this has always been a question that people are surprised to learn the answer to. Um, I thought we were way past this, but I guess there's always been some confusion on whether or not the tower is filled with concrete. And so this time around, people get to see it in real time, because I don't think a lot of people were necessarily looking for it when they did the first tower. But yeah, so down here we can see the risers that they have for the concrete pump, which is actually, do they have the pump down there right now?
Yep, it's right down there, and there's a nice mess underneath it that looks like they've actually done the foot segments already and had a clean out already.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the actual pump. So the trucks just pull up here and offload. And you can see on the legs right here, the risers go up the legs. And on each level, oops, hold on. Jeff made this really awesome panorama, and I was about to forget that I had it. So give it a second to load here. Cool. Oh, okay. Got the loading bar of death. Yeah, so last week, or throughout this week, they've had these panels on the side of the columns open, and they were actually lifting in grout like by the bucket load. So we believe they were just filling in the area at the bottom where all of these bolts come through. But as of now, they've actually sealed at least this one off. This one over here, I believe, it's tough to tell. It kind of looks like it's still open.
I think they're all sealed. If you look at it, and if you look at all of the bolts, particularly on that back one and the front one, you can almost see what looks like seepage from the bolts. Where I think they've already pumped to the first inlet, and we're actually seeing concrete come out of some of the threads.
Are you sure about that? I guess
But
that could.
that's
Yeah,
what it looks like to me.
interesting. Yeah, so that would make sense. And this is the
That would just be the
where is it? Right
foot.
here
Yep.
is one of the holes that they actually attach the hose to. So the hose will come up. I guess since they've already done this one,
Yeah,
the
there's a
hose will
flex.
come up
Yeah,
like,
there's a flex line that they've
let's
filled
go
in
to the
there.
next level. Sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
the next
No,
level right here, you can see where they don't have where they have a gap between the risers. So the hose will actually connect here and go over to each of these ports on the side of the legs. And so they'll use these ports on each level to fill the column basically down to here. And so they'll do that on each of the 4 columns before they move up to the next level. And right now, I think that the main thing that was waiting on was all of the welding work. So it's tough to see this because they've sprayed it over with something. But when we look up the tower, you can kind of see the progress that they've made on the actual welding. And this is a little different than the first tower because, matter of fact, I may be able to just scroll over and look at it. But they did not cut the plates off on the existing tower. So that was something that I found really interesting, is that they left these plates on and they only welded really on the sides. And so this is welded all the way around, which in my opinion makes this a bit stronger. And as well, if we keep going up, you can see they've got this level done as well too. and I think they've just finished up on this level. You can see that they've gotten that weld completed, and this next level they've just finished that as well too. But I think they still have the
Yep.
plates on the side here. So
Yep.
if we look at this leg, yeah, you can still see the plate there. So they're working on the side, the two side welds, and then after they finish that, they'll actually cut the plate off and then do this line back here, which you can see behind the plate. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 more that they'll have to do. And so soon they'll actually start that concrete work while they're going up, while they're still working on that welding. Man, this thing is just keep scrolling forever. But yeah, so this will be that level that they do next, and I believe once that's done, then they'll actually be able to finish the actual railing for the chopstick rails, which I find really interesting that they've gotten these hung up on here. Where are they?
Yeah, top left, there's one of
Oh,
them.
here it is. Yeah, these rails for the chopsticks or the chopstick carriage. I think it's really funny to me that they've gotten them attached like this. I mean, because it's like, is it really saving you that much time to not have to lift it up here with a crane?
With this, they actually lowered a couple of them and took them back up the other morning, and I would say it definitely will, because even with that crane on the whip line, it was still like a 10-minute round trip for each one.
I guess if speed is the goal, and
Yeah.
having it close by instead of having to lift it off the ground helps out a little bit.
And they'll probably come in with just some block and falls somewhere nearby, so they may not even use the crane. I mean, they could use the crane and just snatch it off of there and then move it over. I could see them even doing it with some kind of hand winches.
Yeah. Somebody was mentioning something about how many welds they need for each of these. I think we could barely see it on one of these that I passed by. No, let's go higher up. One of the newer ones, or the more recently completed ones, or you can probably see it.
I'd say there's
Uh,
probably 10 to 20 at minimum. It would be my best guess. It seems like they have to lie a lot of beads in there.
well, I wouldn't say it's that much. I would probably expect like 5. We could see it on one of them.
I mean, because I remember when
Hard
some
to
of the
zoom
lower
in.
ones at the first, they were throwing some beads in there that were like so far, because there's a pretty decent chamfer in there that, I mean, you weren't even getting to the surface after a couple of runs.
Right. So yeah, at least maybe 5 passes through there, if not more. Yeah. So I mean, you're going all the way across and then back and then back and back, until it basically is level with the chamfer out here. Yeah. So it's quite a bit. And then you got to do that again once you take that plate off. So these guys are pretty much out here nonstop doing this work. You can see him up there doing it right now. He's probably in between passes. But yeah, it is definitely a ton of work. And one of the other things that they've done already, which is really cool, most of the actual plumbing is finished, except at the bottom. They still have to run the pipes coming from the actual tank farm up through here. But at each of the joints, where's
Yeah,
the top?
I hadn't seen whether the main cryo lines were connected. I know all the
Yeah,
16 smaller ones were done.
all of the collars
Yeah.
right here. You can see those. I think I was looking at a different angle that was showing these better. I think there's another angle here. Yeah. So sorry, let me go down a little bit. Where's the in-between sections? Right here. So yeah, basically with all of these pipes, they were already pre-hung up here, and all they had to do was loosen the brackets for them and drop them basically on top of the ones from the level below. And all of these look like they're pretty much that they're already been welded. So I mean, these guys have been super busy doing all of this stuff. So their mechanical work is going very fast inside of here. I think one of the interesting things that we're going to see soon will be what happens with the actual QD arm. And maybe I can see it from this angle. I'm going to try it. I don't know if we were looking at the right one. Sorry, this is the panorama photo.
Yeah, you can only see part of the actuator bracket there. You just passed it on the right. It's on the
Okay,
right.
yeah,
It's on
so
the
I'm
back
looking
right
at the
side.
wrong angle. Okay, so one more. This shows basically all of them right here. Actually, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so these are I'm going to get rid of the thumbnail bar on the bottom. So yeah, this is interesting. I mean, we've kind of known this for a while, but there are 4 brackets essentially for this QD arm. And the question has always been whether or not this was a design change or what, because it almost seemed like this decision was made before the actual, that these are basically in the older position versus the new position. But I do think all of these potentially will be used for that structure, which will make this pretty interesting. What is also interesting is that there's only one location for the actual piston itself.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's going to be a totally different setup, and I think it's going to be only one position. I don't think the extra 2 are about being able to move it because of the fact there's only the one mounting. I think they found there's something in there about better support of the arm with a taller anchorage.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be interesting to see a larger structure here, considering it may have to reach up higher as well too. That gives it a little more stability, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that we haven't seen anything for this yet is pretty interesting. I would imagine if it was going to be similar to what's already existing, then they probably would have just shipped it over from Florida. But it seems like they're probably going to build something completely different.
I have a theory. What if they could actually, instead of just having the SQD plate move up and down, what if the hinge point of the arm actually moves to accommodate?
Well, sorry, you mean the hinge point on
Like where the arm wraps around the backside of
tower?
the tower.
Yeah,
So right now, currently, it's a fixed structure with an end where the claws used to be that will fold back.
right.
So what if they do that farther back on the arm instead of being up front?
Like an elbow instead of like a hand, basically.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. I mean, that could be interesting if it folds out in 2 directions at the same time. I don't know how that would work though.
But yeah, basically, it would also be adjustable from there instead of having to rely on the actuator on top of the QD arm for the
Right.
QD plate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could see the concept. I think the question would be that I think the structure to allow like to have a hinge with then a segment that kind of raises and lowers on near the hinge. I feel like the structure would be heavy to a point where you'd be taking a mass deficit on the ability to pull it back. So I kind
Right.
of I think I'm following what the thought is, but I think it would be too big of a structure to be plausible.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I do think that
Um,
I think because the QD has to go up higher, I feel like if going up higher on the end of the arm, having a little bit more structure at the bottom of the hinge point, I think is what's going to be needed to kind of offset that kind of cantilever.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, so speaking of the integration tower. I think one of the interesting things that we've also seen this week is some changes to the first tower, which I guess we'll start looking at this one from the bottom. So obviously these are the brackets for the diagonal members of the support structure. So these were basically identical to what was on the first tower, but for some reason they ended up installing new ones on the existing tower. So we're going to move over here. We'll probably come back because I think there may still be questions related to this tower. So I'm just going to explain this really quick and then we'll go back over there. Where's that side angle? Right here. Cool. So yeah, we've seen this week that they've actually swapped out those brackets. And I think I was talking to Jake before the show that the existing brackets may actually still be there. That this possibly went on top of it.
Yeah,
So so this actually extends, gives it a little extra extension. And I think there's probably, if I had to guess, 16 bolts on each of these. And probably on the back side as well too. So yeah, very interesting. Do you have any thoughts on why they did this?
No, it's interesting. It's really interesting that they've added it in it and that the new tower doesn't have a similar feature to it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is just proximity to blast, and there's either some damage, some stress cracks or something that they're looking to put some extra strength in there, or they're seeing some deformation or something from forces. It's really odd that they're needing to add it without seeing it on the other tower before they started stacking.
This must have been interesting to have to install because you'd have to basically take all of the bolts out of the other plate and then put this on top of it through the other plate. And then these holes, you'd have to actually drill through the steel beams in order to actually put these bolts through because those holes were not pre-existing. So they would have had to drill all of those holes through there.
Yeah, the new holes were added before the plate. I remember seeing them before the plates went in. I watched some of that, and it's funny because it didn't dawn on me when I watched it that the existing bolts would have been problematic. And so I'm not sure when they had it because the plates were still there just as they were going in. So I don't think they took the old bolts out. So I'm looking back, I'm kind of confused on how they even managed to get that in there.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder. So basically, let me look at this from above, actually, because this kind of, I had a hard time like fully viewing this morning. So over at the pad B area, or sorry, pad A, they actually have some of these laying on the ground. So yeah, here are those little braces, I guess you can call them. And so you can kind of see that they basically are, I don't know how you would describe this, but there's almost like an imprint right here for where the existing brackets would sit inside of, I guess, since this goes on top of the existing brackets. It's weird because you don't see any holes in this yet.
Yeah, I see rows of holes there. They're very faint in it, but the only thing I can think on those two lines is that on the back side of these, there is a additional piece of plate on the four ends to essentially compensate for the thickness of the existing plate.
Right.
So I think so. I don't know if that's maybe just some penetration lines or something else, but I wonder if what they did with the bolts is they may have actually welded the old gusset to the beams, and then they could pull the bolts all out without having to worry about how that other plate stays in place.
Right. Yeah, and it looks like they're actually welding them possibly to the beams as well too.
Yeah, there was some welding in those areas, I think last night. So I don't know if that's true. There was some speculation on whether maybe some of those bolt holes aren't filled with bolts. They were plug welding them, but I think it's all bolted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about the location of these. They're also in the same spots where the actual shielding plates are, and you can, I guess, if you just look at like this beam right here, as compared to like one of the ones up here. Like even though this has a shield over it, it's still pretty roasted. So I imagine like with how hot this thing gets, you may potentially be worried about like strength over time, and maybe even like some sort of like deflection in the actual beam itself. So maybe this additional brackets on here, or the extended bracket right here, maybe to just add extra strength to prevent something like that from happening. Because it's interesting, you would expect them to do this everywhere if it was just about general strength of the tower itself. Um, but it seems like they're only doing it on this side. I didn't see it on the front side. I don't know if we could see it. Oops. That's not what I was looking for. But actually, this is a cool view of how roasted these things are.
And I have a question real quick. Are the plates being put on the inside of Tower 1 as well?
Yeah, I did see one get turned in there because I was watching it, and that's how I know that there was an extra piece of metal on the inside of the ones, because they put it in, and I was like, that's going in backwards, and then I realized that they were putting it on the inside face.
Oh, really? So they have it on the inside.
Correct. Yeah,
Wow.
it's not just the outside; they've added another one also to the inside.
Wonder how, if this is as high up as they're going to go with that, which is just basically to the last area that where there's actual shielding. So 2, 3 levels. I imagine they're probably going to do this one as well too, since they still have 2 more on the ground over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either the third one on that side or some on the other side. Because I think there's 3 plates. I guess if they're doing both sides, you need 4 plates. Because I think I've seen 3 plates on the ground over there. There's 2 that we looked at there, and then a third one just off somewhere else.
Yeah. And as far as this being necessary on the other tower, um, I have a feeling the other tower won't get as much abuse as this one does, since it will have that flame trench. You won't actually have flames um, during ignition reaching here. So maybe after it clears the tower, you'll probably get a little bit that makes it over to the actual wall of the tower, but it won't be bouncing off the ground back up at the actual tower like it does on this one. So that may be a reason why this isn't necessary on the other one.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So I guess looking at this from the aerial view again, I'm going to go back over to the Pad B side. Yeah, so we also have this crane in its final configuration. So they finished extending that last week before they did these 2 sections. So this is as tall as they'll need to get the last section up there. But one other thing we have over here is, try and get a better view on it. So this is the concrete base for what we believe is the fluids bunker. Or
That's my
potentially,
going. That's my going theory on it right now.
yeah, I mean, what I was kind of thinking maybe is this would be like an underground box for the pumps, but I just don't think it's wide enough for that.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that that's probably right.
Yeah, because at Massey's they have the pumps above ground in a bunker. So I was thinking that you would, instead of just drilling them into creating holes in the ground and filling them with the casings, you'd actually be able to store them inside of a bunker, so they're a little bit better protected, I guess, specifically from like groundwater and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just weird right now because it looks really small. But I guess this week they started pulling out the what do you call these?
Yeah, the formwork came out earlier this week, and we've even seen some of the shoring. I think actually right after the flyover, the actual shoring for the excavation was starting to be removed as well. Actually, the crane's hooked up to the east side shoring right now. In that picture,
pulling all that out.
Yep.
And where they've also been doing more drilling in this area. Do you know where that is? I haven't been able to really.
Well, I mean they've done some drilling in a number of places. It's hard to tell. It's been the cranes being or the BG-45 is being decommissioned right now, but they've been in a number of places, both in this view to the right of the pit, There was a lot of piles in there.
We're here.
Yep, there's a bunch of piles in that area. Um, I know there's others who know better than me even on exactly where stuff was, because as they were starting to drill over in this area, a lot of the ground-based live cameras were really struggling to kind of for you to be able to triangulate where it was at relative to the other
Right.
objects.
Yeah, I guess you can almost see the tops of some of the piles down here. Are there any closer to the tower as well too?
We did see kind of a line that runs parallel to the conduit line that goes from the bunker to the three vaults that are by the tower. So it's kind of just off the edge of the back edge of the tower. Potentially a line of piles to do like a tie down slab for the cryo pipes so they can't try to float or anything like that underground.
Right. Yeah, I love the base of this tower. It looks amazing. Um, they've gotten some of the framework up here for the slanted roof, um, and I think the drawworks is supposed to go on this side, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that this may be all we see for the roof structure right now until the drawworks. I feel like the drawworks is going to take that entire opening, and then on the other side, I think they're going to leave that roof mostly open for getting the dead end, the spool in there, and any other equipment that's related with the dead end.
Right. And even if we look at this from the ground, that frame looks really cool. Sorry, I'm trying to find that view.
And a quick question while you're finding that from Cumulus granitus. Um, the fluids bunker, could it be for shutoff valves and electrical?
Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose this could be electrical more than fluids, actually. I mean, just given the way that we know the conduit runs underground right here, it kind of does seem like an electrical vault almost, like a huge electrical vault. So yeah, I mean, it is possible that that's what it's for. Um, I don't see any. Are there embeds in here? I don't really see.
No,
But there
no.
are
We've just
penetrations
got the
through the
two.
sidewall.
We've just got the two penetrations. One towards the tower, and then the one out the right that seems like it's likely to be for the actual OLM trench.
So if we look at this from here, uh, the electrical, I believe, comes in right here.
I think it's a li- isn't. I think it's on the other side of the drive. I think is where the vaults were closer to where the current electrical bunker is, to the left by where that truck with the trailer is.
Um,
I think
this
it.
one?
I think the vaults are over on that side of the driveway, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so they could just come in through here. And then, I mean, I don't, yeah. Because you probably have a lot of like control systems and stuff. So this is basically would be similar to um, the one back here.
Yeah, I think my biggest hesitation to agree with that is that in the plans, anyways, all of the electrical bunkers were farther back where the existing buildings are. And this seems to be very much in a cross path of a straight line from the tank farm and a diagonal path to the tower, um, which is kind of what leads me to not think that it's for electrical.
Yeah, it is, I guess, in a
But
straight path
possible.
along here.
Yeah, and yeah, because they were showing the electrical bunker behind the current
Hmm.
comms bunker there.
Yeah, and we missed out on where the conduits. I mean, we saw the trench there where those vaults kind of led is pretty much straight from the pit over to the tower, but they covered it up so fast we never saw the actual conduit run. So we don't know if it
Okay.
maybe angles to the corner or if it's actually leading towards that opening, because it wherever all those conduit runs are just stopped are dead ended somewhere underground in there.
Right. Yeah,
So
I
I
think with another, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't trying to change the subject, but we did have a couple of questions regarding the tower that we had touched on previously. Crane Man was wondering if all the 4 hinge points could be because of the new QD arm, and it being heavier due to extra cladding or armor for blast protection.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. I mean, in all of the renders for Tower One, they showed cladding on at least the chopsticks. I don't know. I can't remember if they had it on the QD as well too. Um, so I mean, I don't know if it's true blast protection as much as it's just like final cladding for it, just to make it look nice. Um, but yeah, I mean, I suppose the added weight on there, you may want additional hinge points or something like that. But in my opinion, those are more likely related to the fact that the QD arm has to reach up higher, so you want additional support um, for just the oddness of the structure.
And that Kevin was wondering, is it an issue to pour in concrete and have it start curing before the full weight of the tower is bearing down on it?
Um, that's a good question, but I'm not really sure. I just know the order that they did it on the first tower. So they did have, I think they started right before the last module was stacked on this tower. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even call that the full weight because, you know, a lot of this weight comes from the actual concrete itself. So yeah, I'm not necessarily sure if that's necessary to have it topped off before, but I do believe they need to have um, finish all of the concrete in the columns before they put the chopsticks on. I do think that's one thing they did before.
All right, and I believe it's Amjade 9. Is Tower B actually going to be taller, or is Elon talking Elon?
Wait, sorry, what was the question again? I got
It's only going to be the meter and a half that the base is taller. The actual structure of the tower is not any taller. Elon just misspoke somewhat on how it was taller. It's not. There won't be a 10th section.
yeah.
And one last thing or 2 questions actually. Would they move the mobile OLM immediately after launch before the catch attempt?
No.
And
Yeah,
and then
nothing moves at the launch site in between those two events. It's only 8.5 minutes. So, um, yeah, there would be no movement of anything at the launch site other than the chopstick arms.
and Rocket Prophet was asking, what is the welding method used to do this type of welding?
Looked like they were just using a MIG gun. It wasn't stick or TIG.
All right.
Oh,
And
well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna shout out some donations we've had. Um, Astro Caneckle had gifted us a membership. Rocket Prophet gifted 5, and RC Horseman gifted 5. And then we got a super sticker from Wadura Wersinghe. I sorry if I butchered that. Looks like 17.99 South African. All right, and that pretty much wraps that up for now.
Cool. Yeah, so one of the last things we want to talk about today was the chopstick tests, basically the tests that they're doing with test tank 14.1, which is basically the same test tank that they used the previous time when they did this with just the right chopstick arm. So since they did that test, and I'm going to go scroll through some images here, they have replaced a lot of the hardware on the actual chopsticks themselves. So you can almost tell what they replaced without even knowing what they did. So this is the old hydraulic piston on this side, which is, I think, the only thing really remaining from what was initially installed here. But all of these gas springs essentially are brand new, and same thing on this side, except I believe they replaced the actuator over here.
Yep.
Yeah, so the one on the other side is the only remaining actuator. Beyond that, they also replaced all of the linkages right here. So these were upgraded. They're significantly larger than what was initially installed there. So basically beefed those up. I guess technically they added a bunch of these gas springs as well too, because they only had I could be getting this wrong. So there was the piston or the actuator, and then I believe
One on one
one
on
on
each
each
end.
end.
Yep.
Yeah, so they added 1, 2, 3, 4.
Four more. Yep.
Yeah, 4 more gas springs on each side. And that alone has made it so that when the rail moves up and down, it's a lot more level on each side, because it was kind of like weird. It would come down on one side faster than it would come down on the other side. So it seems like it's a little bit smoother now, while having these other gas springs on here. The other thing they did was replace the actual. So right now they're kind of doing a trial, it seems like, with these new pads on the side of the chopsticks. And I do have just something from Chrome Kiwi, which showed this. It's just a little GIF right here, which kind of shows how these pads are basically like bumpers. So there's like steel over the actual rubber pads themselves. So it kind of allows this to slide, excuse me, slide along the stringers a little bit better. And right now we know that when we look at the aerials, and of course I'm going to have to go backwards to get that. They actually have more of these that they're planning to install. So these are, to get this from the front. Okay. Should be down here somewhere. I need a different angle. Maybe this one. Cool. Yeah. So these brackets down here are basically what those pads rest on. So looks like they're planning on installing more of these onto the chopstick rails. I think they had more down here as well too. Yeah, one right here. So these are basically the framework that the pads actually rest on when they're mounted onto the rails. So I think they've also gotten some more tanks for the gas spring system, or is this for the accumulator?
I believe that's for the actuator.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like they're still adding more onto the chopsticks. So they're not quite ready yet. But I think they're prepared. So, well, I guess start with the test that they did this week, and then we'll go into like future testing. So I'm gonna go back to that video. And Mauricio actually got this video. I have a stabilized version of it right here. So I'm going to play it all the way through. It's like a minute and a half. But yeah, this is very interesting testing that they had going on here. So I guess the way I would describe this is that the chopsticks are first start off by like getting in their initial position. So just closing from their wide open position to kind of lining up to where they need to be before they close. So I imagine the booster hasn't yet started its landing burn at this point, but it's getting close. And I don't know. I think Ryan will probably show this in his upcoming episode about the chopsticks, but it'll give you a good view of when they actually start closing in relation to where the booster is. Oh, and I think I actually have some. I don't know if you can hear them close on this video. And there we go. All right. So what's your thoughts on this, BJ?
I think it's interesting. I think for this first one, it's not a surprise that it's still as wide as it is. I guess I imagine that they would start closer together in that last move, just for a little bit more speed. I feel like they still got to work out a little bit of smoothness in them, and it may be that they're just too big, and until they go to the short arms, we may never see a smoother closing movement because they bounce around so much.
Yeah, I've kind of been expecting it to stay that way. I personally don't think it's possible to get rid of this bounce that they do, just because they're just so big and they have so much inertia. So it doesn't really surprise me. I think the good thing is that no matter what, they can just keep it pressed against the booster. So even though it's bouncing here, the pads they're basically remain in contact even though it's bouncing. So I think the fact that it maintains contact is what's really important, because you want to just make sure that the landing pins land on that actual rail. So yeah, I don't think it's a huge issue that they bounce. I think they would rather that it didn't, but it's not like a deal
Yeah,
breaker.
I mean, you watch some of the tests and you see like the top arms of the carriage. You can even see them flexing up and down a little bit. I mean, there's just so many points of flex that they're not gonna be able to null it out very well. So, I mean, it's definitely coming along, and it's nice to see that they finally got both arms working and all that stuff. A little down to see that I think 3 dampeners have already been removed this morning from the chopsticks, so they're still trying to work through some things, I guess.
Right. I do see some comments in the chat. Somebody asks if we actually believe there will be a catch attempt with Flight 5. I think that's been obvious since the last launch attempt. They were practicing for it. And I think if not for the fact that they planned to do this, Flight 5 may have probably already happened by now. They're clearly getting all this testing done leading up to it, so it seems pretty obvious that they want to do this and that they will. So waiting on the new launch license is part of that. So yeah, I think it's for sure definitely going to happen, and it's not going to happen on the second tower. It will be it will be Tower 1. So yeah, I think this is pretty exciting that they're actually getting close to doing this now. And sorry, I'm gonna go to Pad A again. Yeah, I'm trying to do everything I can to make it down there for this, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting to actually watch. But they are doing some other work as well to this area. So right now, they've also started to replace some of the at least one. They got one of the burn plates for the top of the launch mount that looks like they're gonna either swap out or add onto what's already up here. Kind of surprising that they didn't do that weeks ago, because we should start to see probably a wet dress rehearsal at some point soon. But I do think there will be more testing performed on the chopsticks first. So there is some additional hardware down here, which is likely related to it. So we have these long rods that are right here, and I think there's something else that's supposed to go on top of the chopsticks.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of beams outside the front end of the tank farm. They were put. Actually, I think we have a ground shot of them before they were offloaded. Actually, I think. Or maybe I'm remembering somebody else's for that matter. It might have been somebody else's, but they're sitting in front of the tank farm that are suspicious. I mean, they may be for something completely unrelated, but there's some interesting brackets and structure to it. So
I don't see any.
Yeah, I might be remembering from something else I've seen.
Yeah, I don't see any from that.
But it was in the aerials, but it just looks like a couple of I-beams, so there's not a whole lot of detail. But it looks like a couple of I-beams that are at least one that's long enough to stretch across the chopsticks potentially, or maybe be below. I know Ryan had kind of has talked about how we think that those rods are going to get stretched somehow between the chopsticks and some form of counterweight system, to do some further load testing that doesn't like force lifting up on B14, and then the clamps and such like that. I'm not quite
Right.
sure. I'm not really sure what the purpose would be. I feel like any test they do is going to be less than the weight of the ship or the booster anyways. So I don't know. I was just speculating a couple weeks ago based off of seeing those pipes, and we've kind of rolled with a few ideas speculating.
hmm Yeah. I mean, either way, now that this test tank has been lifted off of here, we are expecting them to do something else. I mean, they have replaced those gas springs. I may imagine they may want to retest, just see how they're performing again. But I think they already sent this back to the build site, right?
Yep, it's. I think that I know it's back there. It's in the rocket garden now. It was sitting in the ring yard this morning when I woke up. So
Okay.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
rolled it over this morning to Sanchez.
Um, cool. Yeah. One other thing that I wanted to mention as relates to that first catch attempt. So we are under the assumption that they will activate the deluge system during that. Um, and so it looks like they've added some extra protection for all the valves that were on top of these, the basically depressed vents for the deluge system. So all of the valves are now enclosed in boxes, which is pretty cool. They actually did that. They started it last week. I'm not sure if it was mentioned during the show or not. But yeah, pretty nice. And I think this basically, um, obviously, just protects the valves because you don't want the flame coming around here, which it does, and damaging those valves and making them inoperable for some reason. Because you're probably going to need to reactivate this system during the booster's landing. So just some additional protection going on down there. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done the same with these ones, but that could be coming next. We haven't seen any additional boxes down here. No. But yeah, just another cool thing to point out. And last but not least, I think we should also take a look at the tank farm area, which looks crazy how different this is without with this area kind of cleared out. I know they probably showed this last week, but still worth taking a look at now that it's all cleaned up. I'm expecting maybe after this next launch, we'll see some additional hardware down here. Or who knows, it could just remain this way. But what we are expecting for sure, I guess, is some additional pipes, or sorry, not pipes, tanks down in this area. I think I have a... Yeah, so we're expecting the tank farm to be extended down in this area. They already have pedestals for an additional tank over here.
they've got the embeds there for the next one for sure, and then they've excavated and done piles for a second one in addition to what's there. But they have not put any embeds or any final foundations in for it.
Okay. Yeah, and to go along with this, they've also got the new entrance way. I think this is the new D2 entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, right now, as of right now, I don't think they can necessarily, they probably can, but I don't know if they would want to move a booster over this until they have concrete down. I don't know if it'd be that big of a deal, but I think they're definitely going to want to complete the driveway going over to this area. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how night and day difference this launch site is. I mean, the tank farm just looks so much bigger now, but I kind of like it. I did like the vertical tank farm. Obviously, it wasn't the greatest location for it, being in the basically inside of the blast zone. But yeah, I don't know. This feels like it has just such a large footprint now.
Yeah, and it feels so weird with it since they haven't gone back to utilize the remaining portions of the vertical farm. It looks just really weird being so open. But I like the skyline without the verticals. It just looks so much. You can see around stuff. It looks so much better.
Well, I mean, the amount of tanks at the launch site is just going to keep growing. And I mean, I'm sure this was mentioned in last week, but we're also expecting the basically a sorry, I'm trying to grab the right image. So basically expecting a air separation plant down in this corner, right? So yeah, that was something I said would probably be a good idea a few months back, and that's really awesome. I have a feeling that the same ASU that used to be at the Sanchez site, so they basically carefully took that down. They didn't like, you know, scrap it. They basically took it apart and sent it off somewhere else. But I have a feeling that same ASU will come back and be installed right here. So if they do that, that's gonna be really awesome because it just allows them to fill up all of their nitrogen and um, oxygen tanks. They'll really only have to deliver methane at that point, which will be will reduce a lot of the traffic back and forth to the launch site. So yeah, that's exciting. I think it's not necessarily something that's required to have before operation of this tower begins. It's just a future addition, which will, whenever it becomes active, help support their launch operations here. I just saw in the chat, Zach is a secret consultant to SpaceX. I am not. That would be pretty cool, but I don't think I'm qualified for that. So, yeah, most of this is all speculation, even though we do have some confirmation on some of these things. But yeah, do we have anything else that I haven't touched on that y'all wanted to mention, BJ or Lawrence?
Stephanie B brought up about the fact that the um, water bag load spreader was, or is it Sanchez, for the landing rail test, as well as those blue poles that could also possibly be used for weight testing the landing rails.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen them and moving around. It's down by the 2 LNG tanks right now, Zach. I mean, that bracket has been down. You just scroll it off. It's right there to the bottom right.
Right here.
It's been in Sanchez for 3, 4, 5 months. We've seen it move here to there. I mean, it's moved around a lot. So certainly plausible that it may be used as in conjunction with those tests. But the fact that it's in Sanchez, I don't think is quite an indicator yet.
Agreed. I think maybe we should. Do we have any like big questions that we should touch on? We are more than an hour past where I was initially planning the show to go, but no worries there.
Yeah, I got about 5 here. First, once Pad B is finished, do you think they'll pull down Launch Pad 1 to turn it into a trench as well?
Most likely. Yeah, I think that's probably what we should expect to see. They've kind of already suggested that they will do that. Um, I don't think the tower necessarily has to come down. Yeah, I imagine they. If I was them, I would probably want to redo the tower, but that's a huge investment. The launch mount, not so much, especially if if you have like a mobile mount. It's not as big of a deal to get rid of this one because it's not like you're rebuilding another one. So yeah, I mean, I at least the actual launch mount itself will probably get removed. It's tough to say what will happen with the tower, but yeah, I think this one is like significantly more reinforced than this one is, both structurally, like underground, more properly supported than the first one is. So maybe possibly that they want to have the same quality of groundwork done on this one and rebuild it, but I don't know. I don't know if it's fully necessary.
And on that note, are we expecting from Brian Illenberg, are we expecting the Pad B flame diverter to be merely a larger version of the Massey static fire stand, or something different?
Y'all have thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be different in the fact that I don't see it being as deep as what the Massey's one was. And then I think in general we think it's going to exit in two directions. Personally, I'm only 90% sold on that, but so I think there's going to be a few differences there. But and it may actually be somewhat above ground as well. But I think we're going to see it go down and come back up as well. So kind of looking like it, but two of them back to back.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking it's going to be a hybrid between the current Deluge plate and the Massey's Flame Trench.
Yeah. Agree with both of those points. Cool. Well, unless we have any more questions that we need to touch on, I think there's probably at least some donations that we should cover. And in the meantime, if y'all haven't done so already, please do us a favor and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's show, especially if you appreciated the extra hour. Yeah, we'll handle the rest of those donations and then probably wrap up the show.
All right, so we had actually a $5 super chat from Appalachia Run. Wouldn't it be better if the landing pins were a little longer and stick out more from the booster?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm as scared about the design or the prospect of catching a booster as some people are. I can't really think of anything I would have done differently.
Yeah, I think the longer you make those catch pins, the more force that the same amount of weight is going to impose on the vehicle. So I think the shorter, the better.
All right, and we got three more short questions. Where's the new FTS building?
They haven't brought a replacement in yet.
No.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be done at production now, personally, before they roll out for final launch.
I don't know about that.
I don't
I think there's
disagree
a
with
reason
it.
that they don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I say that is because they do that with like SLS and other rockets.
Yeah, that's kind of where I go on it too. If Falcon 9 is pre-installed somewhere before it rolls out, why can't Starship do the same thing?
Fair.
And has the CH4 recondenser stuff moved?
Yeah, part of it. So the stuff that was the tanks that were back here got moved up to the front right here. So now those are a little bit more protected. It's actually behind one of the legs now as well too. So yeah, much better protected.
And last one, how do they pump nitrogen?
How do they pump nitrogen?
Yeah.
So they basically with these they can pump nitrogen the same way that they do the LOX and CH4. So they just basically switch over. I'm going to get a better image. So yeah, the pipes that are coming in right here. So this is the methane inlets, but they right here is nitrogen. So they can swap between nitrogen and methane coming in through here. And they can do the same thing on the other side as well too. So this is the liquid oxygen, and this is nitrogen coming up down here. So they can basically swap between those. Yeah. And that's just for cryo test, which they really don't do. Like they don't really pump nitrogen anymore. They don't really do any nitrogen testing on the launch mount anymore. Cool. Was that the final question?
Crane Man had one last one, which was, do you know where the 2 tanks at Massey's end up in the orbital tank farm?
No. We do believe they could end up here somewhere, but we don't know. They could go in this area right here. They seem to actually fit in there pretty nicely, but yeah, we have no idea.
At Sanchez. Okay, yeah, he was talking about the LNGs. So,
Yeah, I mean, that was my initial thought when they first came, was that they'll go somewhere within the old vertical farm.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to be used on the second tower. Basically a duplicate of these tanks. They're reclamation tanks for detanking methane. I'm expecting them to need these on the other towers, so would be kind of surprised to see them come over here because I can't really see a reason for them to be here.
I get that excuse. That makes a lot of sense for recondensing on the pad B.
Yeah.
all
Cool.
right, that clears it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for all the questions. We definitely had a ton of them today. Always happy to answer them. And once again, thank you to everybody who donated, especially all the birthday donations for Mauricio. And for those of you who missed the beginning of the show, today is Mauricio's birthday. So happy birthday, Mauricio. And again, thank you to all the support from everybody in the audience. And happy to be here every week, or well, the weeks I'm not working, to do these shows. And once again, thank you to BJ and Lawrence for helping out today. And also, obviously, the mods in the chat and everybody involved with production. Emmeline, who does the production work in the background. Shout out to Emmeline. Yeah, with that, I will go ahead and pass this off to BJ. And I don't know who wants to do the sign off today. We can virtually rock, paper, scissors for it.
Yeah, glad to be here for another week. We had a lot to talk about, and it showed. And the ground photos let us really get in and kind of dig into a few of those topics. So we had some great interaction, and thanks everyone for the contributions, especially for Mauricio and his birthday and everything like that. So with that, I'll send it over to Lawrence.
And I thank you to our RGV team, our members, all of our great Patreon supporters, and everybody watching today. Another great flyover. Happy birthday, Mauricio. And till next time.
All right, most engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Love you, bye.